As you can imagine, the most dangerous billionaires are often the ones whose money can't be explained through normal business channels. You see, Robert Maxwell, multi-billion-dollar empire like a weapon, commanding media outlets across continents while his fortune's true origins remained buried deeper than state secrets. At first, his life seemed destined for the classic rags to riches story, a penniless Jewish refugee who had emerged from the chaos of World War II as a decorated military veteran, before deftly transitioning in a self-made media baron. Indeed, it was a transformation so complete that even Scottish aristocrats accepted his chosen new surname as legitimate. But his publishing empire provided the perfect front for pension fund theft and intelligence operations, academic journals and newspapers masking criminal enterprises that would make organized crime bosses envious. The lavish parties at his 53-room mansion weren't just social gatherings. They were recruitment grounds where power brokers mingled with predators. His youngest daughter, Ghislaine, absorbed every lesson in manipulation and control, learning that true wealth wasn't measured in dollars, but in the secrets you could extract from powerful men. The Maxwell dynasty evolved into something beyond mere wealth accumulation. They became architects of networks, where human vulnerability served as the ultimate currency of exchange. In today's episode of Old Money Luxury, we explore how a billionaire family's quest for power led them into territories where money and morality ceased to coexist. $4.5 billion. In 2025 terms, this was the empire Robert Maxwell commanded at his zenith in the early 1990s, a fortune built on ink, paper, and the careful manipulation of truth. His media conglomerate stretched across continents: Pergamon Press, Macmillan Publishers, Mirror Group newspapers, substantial stakes in Berlitz, Nimbus Records, and MTV Europe. The physical manifestations of this wealth defied ordinary comprehension. Headington Hill Hall rose from the Oxford landscape like a 53-room testament to ambition unbound. Maxwell had secured this Italianate mansion from Oxford City Council through an arrangement that would have made lesser men blush: renovations in exchange for occupancy. He called it the best council house in the country. Within its walls, politicians and celebrities mingled at lavish gatherings, while his youngest daughter, Ghislaine, navigated a childhood that oscillated between extraordinary privilege and emotional austerity. The London apartment adjoining Mirror Group headquarters overflowed with expensive art and furnishings, each piece a trophy, each room a stage for power. In New York, a Central Park-facing apartment commanded views befitting a media emperor. The yacht bearing Ghislaine's name, Lady Ghislaine, embodied excess in marine form. Jacuzzi, sauna, gym, disco, all floating symbols of a family that recognized no limits. Private jets and Concorde flights compressed the globe to manageable proportions. Oxford United Football Club became another possession, with Ghislaine serving as director. Sport transformed into another currency of influence. Paintings valued at $20,000 in 1991 would be worth $47,000 today. A $50,000 table would command $117,400. Each acquisition marked territory in the landscape of the ultra-wealthy. Ghislaine herself would inherit this appetite for luxury. Her Manhattan townhouse, purchased for $4,950,000 in the 1990s, over $11,600,000 in today's currency, would later sell for $15 million. Her personal fortune, estimated between $10 and $20 million at its peak, funded properties in New Hampshire and London, a jet-setting existence among the global elite. She founded the Terramar Project for ocean conservation, moved through the highest echelons of society with practiced ease, maintaining the family tradition of collecting influence like others collected art. But beneath the surface of this gilded existence, foundations were already shifting. Opaque offshore accounts obscured true wealth. Money moved through channels designed to confuse rather than clarify. The empire that seemed so permanent, so inevitable, contained within it the seeds of its own spectacular destruction. $4.5 billion commanded respect, fear, and entry into any room on the planet. Yet all this magnificence, all these palaces and yachts and paintings, had emerged from the rubble of war-torn Europe and the desperate calculations of a Czech Jewish refugee who had once possessed nothing but determination and a talent for reinvention. The name Maxwell belongs to Scottish lords, to ancient estates near Melrose in Roxburghshire, to a lineage stretching back to Unwin and his son Maccus in 1070. It means Maccus's stream, a place of clear water and hereditary privilege. It has absolutely nothing to do with the story you're about to hear. For the man who would die as Robert Maxwell was born into a bloodline that knew only mud and fear. Ashkenazi Jews who had wandered through the Carpathian Mountains for centuries, leaving no castles, no coats of arms, only whispered prayers in Yiddish and the ability to disappear when the pogroms came. His people were shadows in the historical record, existing in the margins of empires that rose and fell around them like waves, their poverty so complete it erased even the names of his grandparents from memory. What survived was only this. They were farm laborers, breaking their backs on land that would never be theirs, in a corner of Czechoslovakia so remote that misery itself seemed to have forgotten its name. Into this inherited hopelessness came Meckel Hoch, a Jewish laborer whose greatest achievement would be fathering 9 children he could not feed, and his wife Hannah Slomowitz, who bore these children like a curse, each birth another mouth in a world already starving. They named their eldest Jan Ludwig, though names meant little when you owned nothing, not even shoes for your children's feet. Born on June 10, 1923, in Slatinske Doli, Czechoslovakia, a place that would later become Solotvino, Ukraine, as if even geography wanted to forget this beginning. The boy Jan grew up Orthodox, speaking Yiddish, understanding early that his kind were barely tolerated guests in a hostile world where even teachers turned their backs, while children who had learned their hatred young spat upon him. 4 years old before his feet knew anything but bare earth, one of 9 mouths competing for scraps in a hovel that stank of cabbage and resignation. But it was poverty, not prejudice, that shaped him most. That particular variety of want that gnaws at your bones, that makes you understand power not as an abstract concept, but as the difference between eating and starving. Then came 1940, and suddenly their poverty seemed almost quaint compared to what followed. The Nazis brought lists, and on those lists appeared the names of Meckel Hoch, Hannah Slomowitz, and 8 of their 9 children. What happened next was so common, it barely made the historical record. A Jewish family disappeared into the machinery of genocide. Perhaps they died in Auschwitz, perhaps in bullets in a Ukrainian forest. The Holocaust was efficient that way, turning human beings first into statistics, then into smoke. Only Jan escaped, running west with nothing, shedding his name like a contaminated coat as he fled through Hungary and France. Jan Ludwig Hoch died somewhere between Budapest and Britain, and what emerged was a creature of pure ambition wearing the stolen name of Scottish nobility, Ian Robert Maxwell. Captain Maxwell, by 1945, decorated with the Military Cross, speaking perfect English with only the faintest trace of somewhere else. In 1947, this reinvented man would walk into the chaos of post-war Berlin, carrying British intelligence credentials, and discover something extraordinary. A defeated nation's entire intellectual property lay scattered in the rubble, waiting for someone with the audacity to claim it. Pergamon Press would eventually publish 418 academic journals by 1992, having launched approximately 700 titles during its existence, numbers that tell only part of the story of how Robert Maxwell built his empire. The genius lay not in volume, but in the model itself. Scientists paid to publish their research, universities paid to read it, and Maxwell collected fees from both sides of the knowledge economy. His entry into this lucrative world began in 1947, when he started distributing German scientific periodicals from post-war Berlin. By 1948, he had established himself as a distributor, creating pipelines of knowledge from the ruins of the Third Reich to universities across the Allied world. The following year marked the true beginning when he acquired Pergamon Press. The company started with only 6 serials and 2 books, a portfolio most businessmen would have dismissed as worthless. But Maxwell saw what others could not: the coming explosion of scientific research and the hunger for peer-reviewed knowledge that would accompany it. Pergamon became his laboratory for a new kind of publishing empire, built not on popular fiction, but on the arcane world of academic journals where scientists paid to publish and universities paid again to read. Brian Cox, who worked for Maxwell for decades, described the business model, publishing a large number of journals so that established titles could support new ones during their formative years. It was a pyramid scheme disguised as academic publishing, each new journal feeding off the credibility of its predecessors while extracting payment from both authors and readers. By 1951, Maxwell had transformed from refugee to legitimate British publisher, founding Pergamon Press as a limited company. The transformation was remarkable. From 6 serials to dozens, then hundreds, each journal a small monopoly in its specialized field. Scientists needed to publish to advance their careers. Universities needed to subscribe to stay current. Maxwell sat in the middle, collecting fees from both sides. The money flowed like water through a perfectly designed aqueduct. Maxwell's genius lay not in creating knowledge, but in controlling its distribution, turning the free exchange of scientific ideas into a toll road where he collected payment at every gate. He understood that academics, desperate for publication, would pay almost any price to see their names in print. Universities, terrified of falling behind, would pay even more to access that information. By the end of the 50s, Pergamon had become a money printing machine disguised as an academic publisher. The model was so successful that competitors could only watch as Maxwell expanded, launching journal after journal, each one another revenue stream that would flow for decades. By the 80s, his empire had grown far beyond academic publishing. Maxwell Communication Corporation, Mirror Group newspapers purchased for £113 million. Macmillan Publishers acquired for $2.6 billion, plus Nimbus Records, Berlitz Schools, and MTV Europe. 400 companies organized into Byzantine clusters, each piece of an empire so complex that even Maxwell himself may have lost track of where legitimate business ended and financial manipulation began. Yet for all his billions, for all his yachts and political connections, Robert Maxwell understood that empires required heirs, and among his 9 children, he had already chosen his successor, not in business, but in the darker arts of manipulation and control. The selection process had begun early, though none of the Maxwell children understood they were competing in a contest whose rules only their father knew. Among the 9 offspring of Robert and Betty Maxwell, each child faced the same brutal calculus: prove your worth or face the volcanic fury of a man who saw weakness as a personal affront. Most crumbled under the pressure, but Ghislaine, born on Christmas Day 1961 into a household already marked by tragedy, developed a different strategy. Her brother Michael's devastating car accident 3 days later left him in a coma for 7 years, creating a family dynamic where, according to Betty Maxwell's memoir, baby Ghislaine was hardly given a glance by her grieving parents. The youngest of 9 children learned early that attention in the Maxwell household was a commodity as scarce as love, something to be fought for, schemed for, earned through whatever means necessary. While her father raged at his other children, Ghislaine became what he needed, charming where others cowered, flattering where others fled, transforming herself into the one child who could make Robert Maxwell smile. Betty Maxwell would later admit that Ghislaine became spoiled, the only one of my children I can truly say that about. The favoritism was not subtle. Where other Maxwell children received torrents of abuse, Ghislaine received yachts named in her honor, seats on the board of Oxford United Football Club, and most crucially, proximity to power. Throughout the 1980s, she served as her father's shadow, learning how he operated, who he knew, how he bent the world to his will. She absorbed lessons that would serve her well in darker days to come, how to move through elite circles with practiced ease, how to make powerful men feel important, how to recognize and exploit vulnerability. When Robert Maxwell's body was pulled from the Atlantic on November 5, 1991, Ghislaine stood at the edge of an abyss. The empire was collapsing, the pension theft emerging into daylight, her brothers Kevin and Ian facing criminal charges. The golden child of a billionaire had become the daughter of a thief, her name transformed overnight from asset to liability. Manhattan beckoned, a city where reinvention was not just possible but expected, where a British accent and the right connections could open doors that had slammed shut in London. She arrived in New York with her father's ambition intact but redirected, seeking not to build an empire but to attach herself to someone who already had one. Through a mutual friend in 1991, she met Jeffrey Epstein, a financier whose wealth seemed to materialize from thin air, whose connections reached into the highest echelons of American power. Epstein would later describe her in 2009 depositions as his main girlfriend and best friend. But those terms barely captured the complexity of their arrangement. From around 1992, she became the lady of the house at his various properties. Their social circle during the 1990s included figures from across the political spectrum: Donald Trump and Bill Clinton, Prince Andrew and business leaders, celebrities and academics, all drawn into an orbit that transcended traditional political boundaries. Maxwell and Epstein moved seamlessly between a 2000 party at Sandringham House hosted by the Queen, gatherings at Mar-a-Lago, and flights on what would later be known as the Lolita Express. But behind the glamorous facade, prosecutor Lara Pomerantz would later reveal in court, Ghislaine Maxwell had found a new kind of power, one built not on publishing or politics, but on something far more sinister. The training of their first victim, the prosecutor would tell the jury, started immediately. Between 1994 and 2004, Ghislaine Maxwell helped operate a trafficking network that would eventually lead to her conviction on 5 federal charges and a 20-year prison sentence. The operation's scope emerged through testimony from multiple victims, including Virginia Giuffre, recruited at 16 while working at Mar-a-Lago, and Sarah Ransom, who filed suit detailing abuse that began at 22. This recruitment at Donald Trump's resort became the template for a decade-long conspiracy that prosecutors charged involved trafficking girls as young as 14. Each victim was carefully selected: young, vulnerable, often from broken homes or financial distress. Education assistance, career opportunities, connections, these were the lures Maxwell dangled before teenagers who had no idea they were being recruited into a trafficking network. Court testimony revealed Maxwell served multiple roles: recruiter, instructor, and participant in abuse. Victims testified she would introduce them to Epstein under false pretenses, then gradually normalize inappropriate contact, creating a pyramid-like recruitment structure where victims were encouraged to bring friends. The prosecution presented evidence of an address book containing victim contact information under headings like massage, Epstein's Little Black Book, a coded directory spanning multiple states and countries. Annie Farmer testified about encounters at 16. Kate described grooming in London at 17. Each revealed the same pattern: initial kindness, gradual boundary pushing, eventual abuse presented as normal. Maxwell managed the logistics with corporate efficiency, supervising staff, arranging travel, managing schedules, and crucially, providing respectability that made parents trust their daughters to her care. A British accent, Oxford education, a father's borrowed prestige, all deployed in service of predation. The photograph prosecutors showed captured the grotesque reality. Maxwell and Epstein at Queen Elizabeth's Balmoral residence in 1999, invited by Prince Andrew. This was how they operated, using proximity to royalty to intimidate victims. Who would believe a teenager against friends of princes and presidents? On July 2, 2020, FBI agents found Maxwell hiding at a New Hampshire mansion. In December 2021, a jury convicted her on 5 of 6 federal charges. On June 28, 2022, she received 20 years, a fraction of the collective centuries of pain inflicted. Yet, the story didn't end with conviction. On March 30, 2025, Virginia Giuffre posted from a hospital bed after a suspicious severe car accident, revealing kidney failure. Even more mysteriously, less than a month later, on April 25th, she was found dead at her Australian farm. She was 41. Mother to 3 children. Virginia Giuffre joins a grim and oddly consistently roster. Epstein, found hanging in Manhattan, Jean-Luc Brunel, dead in Paris prison, now Giuffre at her farm. Each death adds dark question marks to the circumstances, behind the passing of key nodes in the trafficking ring's power structure. And yet, Ghislaine Maxwell sits in Florida prison, serving year 3 of 20, the last living keeper of secrets powerful men prefer buried. What happens next is anyone's guess. Imagine your life at the very pinnacle of power and prestige in the lovingly innovative and forward-thinking culture of South Korea. Of course, we're not talking about strutting your dance moves as a member of legendary boy band BTS, or being an award-winning star in media properties like Squid Game or Best Picture winner Parasite, although those would be nice. We're talking about a life as South Korean old money where you wake up and check your Samsung phone before heading downstairs to do your laundry in your Samsung washing machine. You turn on your Samsung TV to watch the news hosted in a skyscraper built by Samsung. You live and breathe in a world dominated by this brand. And with the way this company's grown over the last half-century, even when you die, you'll be buried in a Samsung coffin. Better yet, we want you to imagine that you're the heir of this iconic global behemoth. The last place you'd want to, and expect to, end up is in a jail cell. And yet, that's exactly what happened along the way to the Lee family of South Korea's $370 billion empire. In today's episode, we'll share with you the full saga of the founding family of Samsung, from rags to riches to jail to more riches, as we describe. The Lee family, the $370 billion family that owns South Korea. Lee Jae-yong, the suave executive chairman of Samsung, or chaebol for those in the know, isn't just a business tycoon. He's a walking, talking emblem of Asian affluence. With a net worth bobbing around the $9 to $11 billion mark, Lee's not just rich. He's look up and see my bank balance in the stars rich. And his golden goose is, of course, a cozy 2% stake in Samsung as of January 2024. Not too shabby for a day's work. Now, looking to the luxurious life of this billionaire, Lee's not one to overtly flaunt his assets, but let's just say his entry into any room is nothing short of a red carpet affair. Private jets, limos with windows so tinted you'd think they lead to another universe, and suits so sharp they could probably cut glass. That's just a Tuesday for him. And when he's not making business moves, you'll find him perfecting his golf swing or trotting around equestrian stables. Because why not? Naturally, we can't forget his real estate game, which is as strong as the camera quality on the latest phones he makes billions from every day. In 2014, he casually dropped a cool $45 million on a Madison Avenue pad in New York. Add to that properties in London and Seoul, and you've got yourself a global monopoly board. But wait, there's his sister, Lee Boo-jin, sitting pretty with a net worth of $3.7 billion as well. Indeed, she's not just one of the country's richest women, she's a diamond-encrusted powerhouse in her own right. Her rise to riches was punctuated by a journey through the Samsung empire, climbing the ladder all the way to the top at Hotel Schiller, and her lifestyle is equal to Lee Jae-yong's luxury level, but then add a sprinkle of extra extravagance. She's seldom seen without a Bulgari watch that's worth more than most people's homes, and her art collection is diversified as the electronics division in her family's very own multi-billion-dollar empire. Therefore, from the outside, the Samsung family is the very definition of luxury, wealth and influence, and it's like they've got a VIP pass to life itself. But how did this empire sprout from the ground? To understand the roots of this opulent family tree, we need to time travel back to the dawn of the Common Era, where a legendary story of astronomical wealth begins. In the intricate landscape of South Korean history, the Lee family name, or Yi in its original form, emerges as a significant pillar. Tracing its origins to the Gyeongju clan, which was established at the dawn of the Common Era, the clan system in South Korea presents a fascinating study. Unlike the Scottish clans, known for their tartan-clad warriors and rugged highland territories, or the intricate tribal systems of Japan, marked by their strict social hierarchies and samurai codes, the Korean clan system is distinguished by its unique combination of ancestral reverence, regional ties, and social stratification. And the Gyeongju clan, from which Samsung's Lee family descends, boasts a staggering membership of over 1.4 million individuals. And King Yuri, around the year 9 CE, marked a pivotal moment in this clan's history by conferring the name Yi upon his subjects, a name that, through centuries, has evolved into Lee in modern translation. Thus, the Lee surname, riding the waves of time, has become one of the most prevalent in South Korea, only surpassed by one other in terms of popularity. Therefore, outside of the Samsung founders in Korean history, we can find many notable figures hailing from the Gyeongju clan. These luminaries have painted various sectors with their brilliance, from arts to politics, adding layers of richness to the family's legacy. However, the story of Lee Byung-chul, the founding father of Samsung, adds a particularly golden hue to this already impressive lineage. Born not into the struggles of poverty, but into the comforts of substantial wealth, his story begins in the South Gyeongsang province of the then Korean Empire. Indeed, we can picture the South Gyeongsang province at the turn of the century, a period marked by the ebb and flow of traditional Korean culture and the impending tides of modernization. Certainly, it was an era when Korea stood at the crossroads of its own deep-rooted heritage and the looming shadows of external influences. In this historical juncture, in February 1910, Byung-chul entered the world as the youngest of 4 siblings, destined to leave an indelible mark on the business world. From a tender age, education was the beacon that guided Byung-chul's early journey. His academic voyage began at Jungdong High School in Seoul and later led him to the shores of Tokyo, where he enrolled at Waseda University. However, the halls of academia could not contain his burgeoning entrepreneurial spirit for long. Byung-chul soon realized that his true calling lay not in the pursuit of scholarly accolades, but in the vibrant arena of business. With a decision that would set the stage for a remarkable career, Byung-chul turned his back on Waseda University, choosing instead to carve his own path in the world of commerce. Thus, with the boldness of a pioneer and the legacy of centuries coursing through his veins, the entrepreneurial chapter of Lee Byung-chul's life commenced. In 1938, a pivotal year in South Korea's commercial saga, Lee Byung-chul embarked on a venture that would redefine the business landscape of the nation. Founding the Samsung Trading Company in Busan on the 1st of March, he ventured into a domain that was both challenging and promising. Now, the 30s and 40s in South Korea were periods rife with economic transformations. The country, still grappling with the vestiges of Japanese occupation and the stirrings of modern industry, presented a fertile ground for businesses that could bridge the gap between traditional commerce and the emerging demands of a modernizing society. In this context, a grocery transportation company seemed a strategic choice for Byung-chul, catering to the essential needs of a population on the cusp of change. Now, with an initial investment of 30,000 won, roughly equivalent to $25, Byung-chul demonstrated his business acumen in an era when such a sum represented a significant financial commitment. And his approach to growing Samsung Trading Co. was a masterclass in entrepreneurial agility and foresight. In a span of just 7 years, he transformed the company from a modest operation into a significant player in the national market. This rapid expansion can be attributed to his keen understanding of the evolving Korean market, his ability to forge pivotal business relationships, and a relentless pursuit of diversification and innovation in business practices. By 1945, Samsung Trading Company had expanded its operations across the country, becoming a prominent name in the transportation of produce. This success prompted Byung-chul to relocate to Seoul in 1947, seeking new horizons in the nation's capital. However, in 1950, the burgeoning trajectory of Samsung and the fate of South Korea took a dramatic turn with the outbreak of the Korean War. The conflict, rooted in the deep-seated ideological divide between the communist North and the capitalist South, escalated following the North's invasion of the South, and this geopolitical upheaval was a stark manifestation of the Cold War tensions, fracturing the Korean peninsula and its people. Consequently forced to move back to Busan due to the conflict, Byung-chul faced a daunting challenge. Yet, in the turmoil of war, he discovered unexpected opportunities. The influx of American soldiers, part of the United States' effort to support South Korea against the North's aggression, created a new market dynamic, and the presence of these foreign troops, with their distinct needs and consumption patterns, opened new avenues for Samsung Trading Company. Byung-chul adeptly capitalized on this situation, adapting his business to cater to this new clientele. Therefore, the war years, while a period of great hardship for many, paradoxically proved to be a boon for Samsung Trading Company, as the company played a crucial role in meeting the increased demand for goods and services, thereby solidifying its position in the Korean economy. In the aftermath of the Korean War, Lee Byung-chul, with visionary zeal, steered Samsung into the realm of textiles, recognizing the pivotal role this sector could play in Korea's economic resurgence. This strategic expansion marked the beginning of a phenomenal growth trajectory for Samsung, transforming it from a national contender into a global powerhouse. And the 1960s heralded a period of diversification and acquisition under Byung-chul's leadership. His astute business strategies led to the acquisition of multiple insurance companies, a department store, an oil refinery, and a nylon company. Subsequently, this period of aggressive expansion underlined Samsung's ambition to become a conglomerate with a varied portfolio, a goal that was rapidly becoming a reality. Then, 1969 was a watershed year for Samsung as it ventured into the electronics industry. The establishment of its first electronic divisions and the subsequent production of black and white televisions marked Samsung's foray into what would become its flagship sector. And the success was immediate and staggering. Samsung soon became the world's largest producer of black and white televisions. Concurrently, other subsidiaries began to manufacture home appliances, which quickly garnered acclaim within Korea for their quality and innovation. Furthermore, during this era of expansion and success, Byung-chul's son, Lee Kun-hee, started to show a keen interest in the family business. Fresh from his studies at George Washington University, Kun-hee was groomed by his father, learning the intricate realities of steering a company as dynamic and successful as Samsung. Then, the 1980s saw Byung-chul relentlessly driving Samsung's evolution into a technological titan. Under his guidance, the company branched out into semiconductors, electronics, aerospace, and in 1985, the establishment of Samsung Data Systems marked its entry into the information technology sector. These bold moves laid the groundwork for Samsung's future as a global leader in technology and innovation. But then, in 1987, the visionary founder of Samsung, Lee Byung-chul, passed away at the age of 77. At the time of his passing, his estimated net worth was around $35 million, equal to roughly 94 million today, standing as a symbol to his extraordinary ability to turn a modest investment into a multi-million-dollar empire. But Byung-chul's legacy extends far beyond his personal wealth. He was instrumental in the rebirth and growth of Korea's post-war economy, playing a crucial role in the nation's industrial and technological advancements. His life's work, Samsung, not only revolutionized business practices in Korea, but also set new benchmarks in global corporate leadership. However, in order to enter into truly old money territory, the Lee family would need their second generation of heirs to not only match Daddy's performance, but actually outdo the patriarch. Let's see in the next chapter of They Succeeded. In the wake of Lee Byung-chul's passing, a significant restructuring took place within the Samsung empire, and the conglomerate was divided into 5 distinct entities, reflecting a strategic decision to diversify and specialize. First, Lee Kun-hee, Byung-chul's son, assumed control of Samsung Electronics, a move that would herald a new era for the company. His siblings, meanwhile, took charge of the remaining divisions, each carving their own path in the expansive Samsung landscape. And under Lee Kun-hee's stewardship, Samsung Electronics was poised for a transformation. Kun-hee perceived the company, as it stood, to be in a state of stagnation, a stark contrast to its dynamic and innovative beginnings. And this perception was not without basis. Despite its size and reach, Samsung had become mired in a comfort zone, with its strategies and products reflecting a reluctance to venture beyond familiar territories and challenge existing paradigms. Thus, determined to elevate Samsung Electronics to a global stature, Lee Kun-hee embarked on a radical overhaul. He identified a core issue, a cultural inertia within Korean corporate society that hindered innovation and discouraged dissenting opinions. To break this mold, Kun-hee introduced a new management philosophy, encouraging open dialogue, critical thinking, and a departure from the hierarchical norms that stifled creativity and risk-taking. Furthermore, Kun-hee's emphasis on quality over quantity marked a significant shift from the prevailing industry norms. Rather than churning out a plethora of products, he focused on refining a select few, ensuring they surpassed international standards. This strategy was thus not just about competing, it was about setting new benchmarks in quality and innovation. Therefore, the late 80s and 90s saw Samsung Electronics expand its footprint globally, with new manufacturing plants sprouting from England to Texas. This expansion was complemented by a foray into diverse technological ventures, including automobile manufacturing and the acquisition of international companies like Lux and Reli. Soon, Kun-hee's aggressive expansion tactics bore fruit. By 1995, Samsung Electronics' revenue soared to $87 billion, accounting for a significant portion of South Korea's GDP. Yet, success often walks hand in hand with controversy. In 1996, Lee Kun-hee's leadership came under scrutiny following allegations of political bribery linked to then-President Roh Tae-woo. Accused of engaging in corrupt practices, Kun-hee faced a 2-year prison sentence. However, the sentence was initially suspended and subsequently, Kun-hee received a political pardon from President Kim Young-sam. But this episode, while a blemish on his career, did not detract from the monumental impact Lee Kun-hee had on transforming Samsung Electronics, and by extension, South Korea's presence in the global technological arena. His vision and relentless pursuit of excellence propelled Samsung into an era of unprecedented growth and innovation, firmly establishing it as a titan in the global market. Next, during the next decades, Samsung not only weathered the storm of the Asian financial crisis, but also emerged as a leader in the global technology market. The crisis, which swept through Asia from July 1997 to December 1998, tested the mettle of many Asian conglomerates. Samsung, under Kun-hee's guidance, navigated these turbulent times with strategic foresight, strengthening its position in the global economy. And a key milestone in Samsung's journey was the launch of the first Galaxy smartphone in the early 2000s. This product swiftly gained acclaim worldwide, catapulting Samsung into a major player in the smartphone market. In parallel, 2006 marked another triumph for the company as it ascended to the position of the top-selling television manufacturer. These successes were emblematic of Samsung's growing dominance and its ability to innovate and adapt to changing market dynamics. However, the sheen of these achievements was dulled in 2008 when Lee Kun-hee again faced serious legal challenges. He was found guilty of tax evasion, a charge that led to fines exceeding $80 million and a 3-year prison sentence. Similar to the past, Kun-hee was pardoned, reflecting a complex interplay of business, politics, and law in South Korea. This legal debacle resulted in Kun-hee temporarily stepping down as chairman of Samsung Electronics in 2008. But Kun-hee's hiatus from the helm of Samsung was short-lived. He returned to the leadership position in 2010, demonstrating his obsessive commitment to the company's growth and innovation. Under his renewed leadership, Samsung continued to expand its technological footprint, delving into new products such as tablets and smartwatches. However, in 2014, Lee Kun-hee's health took a turn for the worse when he suffered a heart attack, leading him to step down from his active leadership role. He retained the title of chairman but passed the baton of day-to-day management to his son, Lee Jae-yong, who took on the role of de facto director. This transition marked a new chapter in Samsung's history, one that would be navigated by the now third generation of the iconic Lee family. Unfortunately, rather than righting the family ship back on course in the legal realm, more criminal trouble would soon be afoot for the Lees. Lee Jae-yong's tenure at the helm of Samsung has been mired in legal controversies, casting a shadow over the tech giant's impressive achievements, and the most significant of these controversies erupted in 2017, revealing a tangled web of bribery and corruption. Central to this scandal was the revelation that Lee Jae-yong had bribed South Korea's former president, Park Geun-hye. Among various illicit transactions, the most striking, perhaps, was the embezzlement of company funds to purchase an $800,000 horse for Park's daughter. Lee Jae-yong initially served a year of his prison sentence before it was suspended. However, this respite was short-lived as, in January 2021, his sentence was reinstated, leading to another 6 months behind bars before he was granted a presidential pardon. Shockingly, the legal woes for Lee Jae-yong did not end there. In the same year, he faced conviction and a fine of $59,000 for using the illegal sedative propofol. His defense, citing stress relief, failed to sway the court's judgment. Furthermore, allegations surfaced in 2023 linking Lee to a $3.9 billion accounting fraud scandal dating back to 2015, with prosecutors accusing him of manipulating stock prices of 2 Samsung subsidiaries, a move aimed at consolidating his control over the conglomerate. While prosecutors sought a 5-year imprisonment, the outcome of this case remained pending at the time of this report. Despite these tumultuous legal challenges, Samsung Electronics' business performance has remained robust. In the third quarter of 2023, the company held a significant 19.4% market share in the smartphone industry, trailing only behind Apple. Moreover, Samsung has laid out ambitious plans for the future, focusing on integrating advanced AI models into its upcoming generations of smartphones and electronics. Lee Jae-yong continues to steer Samsung even as he faces the possibility of further jail time, and this juxtaposition of business success and personal legal strife paints a complex picture of the Samsung dynasty. On the surface, the company's achievements and market dominance depict a tale of triumph and innovation. However, a deeper examination reveals a less pristine narrative, marked by legal entanglements and ethical questions, much like almost any old money family we've investigated on this channel. Imagine yourself standing at a bar in Amsterdam, Netherlands, looking out the window at lovely canals, while casually sipping what seems like just another green-bottled Heineken. And while you were enjoying the delightful Dutch ambiance, what if we were to tell you that simple beer in your hand was actually worth billions and had a target painted on its back? Understandably, as you trace your finger through the condensation on the glass, you might think you're just holding a drink. In reality, you're holding a piece of one of the most dramatic family-owned business sagas in European history, and that familiar red star gleaming from the bottle tells only half the story. Behind it lies a tale of billions of dollars in ambition, heart-wrenching kidnapping plots, and scandals spanning the African continent. Therefore, in today's episode of Old Money Luxury, we'll share all of that and more with you as we describe the Heineken family, when crime keeps chasing your $11 billion family business. In 2025, while most of us scrape together loose change for a pint at the local pub, the Heineken family sits atop a staggering $10.9 billion fortune, courtesy of selling us those very same pints. Mind you, they're rather good at it, having turned their little Dutch brewery into the world's second-largest beer empire. Not too shabby for a family business, wouldn't you say? Leading this sudsy dynasty is Charlene de Carvalho Heineken, who went from being a quiet homemaker to becoming the beer world's most powerful woman faster than you can say, "Another round, please." She inherited a rather nice 25% controlling stake in Heineken NV in 2002, and let's just say she hasn't exactly mucked it up. Now, you might expect these beer barons to be living it up, splashing their billions around like champagne at a Formula One podium. But no, the Heinekens prefer to keep things positively monastic by billionaire standards. They split their time between a swanky London pad and their Dutch holdings, presumably sipping perfectly chilled lagers while counting their mounting billions. Though they've had their share of headaches, including some rather awkward questions about tax arrangements and business practices in Africa. The family's business prowess, however, is absolutely remarkable. In 2024, while most companies were moaning about market conditions, Heineken casually posted a 7.3% increase in premium brand sales. Birra Moretti and Kingfisher Ultra practically flew off the shelves, helping push their first quarter revenue to a whopping €6.8 billion. That's a 9.4% jump for those keeping score at home. But here's where it gets truly interesting. These brewing virtuosos have pulled off perhaps their cleverest trick yet. they've managed to sell beer to people who don't even want alcohol. The non-alcoholic beer market, worth a hefty $13.7 billion in 2025, has become their latest playground. It's rather like convincing vegetarians to buy meatless butcher shops, and somehow they're making it work brilliantly. Supply chain nightmares? They've weathered them. Changing regulations? They've adapted. Market shifts? They've surfed them like pros. While other family businesses squabble over quarterly bonuses and corner offices, the Heinekens keep playing the long game, thinking in decades rather than fiscal quarters. From their Amsterdam headquarters, where the canals still whisper tales of the first Heineken deliveries, this family continues to rule their beer empire with an iron fist in a velvet glove. Though if you think their story is all about smooth sailing and clinking glasses, you're in for quite the shock. Because behind the pristine corporate facade and perfectly poured pints lies a tale so dark it would make even the strongest lager taste bitter. The streets of 19th century Amsterdam held the seeds of an empire, though none who walked them could have known it then. The Heineken name itself, with its Germanic roots meaning home ruler or edge of the water, seemed to presage the family's destiny along Amsterdam's storied waterways. In those cobblestone lanes, where merchant families built their fortunes through trade and cunning, the Heineken name was merely one among many. Gerard Adrian Heineken entered this world on September 28, 1841, born into Amsterdam's merchant class, comfortable but far from the heights his descendants would reach. His father, Cornelis Heineken, made his living in the cheese trade, a respectable if unremarkable occupation in the Dutch commerce of the time. His mother, Anna Geertruida van der Pauw, brought to the family a connection that would later prove controversial. Her previous marriage to Peter Jacob Schumacher van Oudorp had tied the family to colonial plantations in Berbice and Suriname. Young Gerard walked the same streets his father had, watching the great sailing ships come and go, their holds filled with the goods that made Amsterdam prosperous. He received the education expected of a merchant's son, though nothing in his early schooling suggested the ambition that would later define him. But on February 15, 1864, at the age of 22, Gerard Heineken made the decision that would alter not just his own destiny, but the future of brewing itself. With family funds, their origins now a matter of historical debate, he purchased De Hooiberg, the Haystack, a struggling Amsterdam brewery whose better days seemed behind it. The choice appeared foolhardy to many. Gerard had no experience in brewing, no particular knowledge of the craft that would become his legacy. Yet he possessed something perhaps more valuable, an unwavering confidence in his own judgment and a vision of what beer could become. While his Dutch contemporaries remained committed to traditional ales and porters, Gerard set his sights on lager, a decision that flew in the face of conventional wisdom. In those early days, he walked the brewery floor himself, learning every aspect of the operation, studying the processes that transformed simple ingredients into something greater. 5 years after acquiring De Hooiberg in 1869, Gerard made a decision that demonstrated both his willingness to embrace innovation and his understanding of changing tastes. He abandoned the traditional top fermentation method, replacing it with the Bavarian technique of bottom fermentation. This new process created a clearer, purer beer, one that could be stored longer, a crucial advantage in the emerging global market for premium beverages. The quality of his product soon drew notice beyond Amsterdam's walls. By 1873, Gerard had renamed his enterprise Heineken's Bierbrouwerij Maatschappij and opened a second brewery in Rotterdam, expanding his reach across the Netherlands' most vital ports. Each step was calculated, each move designed to build something that would outlast its creator. In these early years, through careful preparation and relentless attention to detail, Gerard Heineken laid the foundation for what would become one of the world's great brewing dynasties. Yet even as his influence grew, forces were gathering that would test not just his business acumen, but his very understanding of what it meant to build a lasting legacy in a rapidly changing world. The death of Gerard Adrian Heineken in 1893 marked not an ending, but a crucial turning point in the brewery's history. His son, Henry Pierre Heineken, inherited not just a company, but a legacy that demanded both preservation and transformation. Born on April 3, 1886 in Amsterdam, Henry Pierre possessed qualities his father could not have anticipated, but the company desperately needed. While Gerard had built the brewery through intuition and determination, Henry Pierre would guide it with scientific precision. In 1914, he earned his doctorate in biochemistry from the University of Amsterdam, bringing an unprecedented level of scientific expertise to the family business. The laboratory became as crucial to his vision as the brewing floor had been to his father's. Under his guidance, Dr. H. Elion, a student of the renowned Louis Pasteur, developed the A yeast strain that would give Heineken beer its distinctive flavor, a strain still used in every bottle produced today. His scientific approach yielded immediate results. By 1918, Heineken's annual production had reached 500,000 hectoliters, dwarfing the typical Dutch brewery's output of 3,000. As president of Heineken's Beer Brewery Company from 1917 to 1940, Henry Pierre navigated the enterprise through some of the 20th century's most turbulent waters. The economic devastation of the 1930s tested his resolve, but never his vision. While other companies retrenched, Henry Pierre expanded, acquiring Heineken's first foreign brewery, Brasserie Leopold, near Brussels. His mastery of multiple languages and cultivation of international connections transformed a Dutch brewery into a global brand. Soon, Heineken operations appeared in Singapore, the Dutch East Indies, the Belgian Congo, and Egypt, each new outpost carefully chosen and methodically developed. But Henry Pierre's legacy extended beyond mere expansion. His progressive social policies earned him the nickname the Red Brewer, a title he wore with quiet pride. He established one of the Netherlands' first non-contributory pension schemes, created support funds for struggling workers, and implemented labor practices decades ahead of their time. In 1923, under his leadership, Heineken became the first Dutch company to introduce comprehensive pension regulations. His influence reached beyond the brewery walls and into the halls of government, where he served as a senator, bringing his business acumen to bear on national policy. The Dutch government recognized his contributions with knighthood in the Order of the Dutch Lion, while France bestowed upon him the Legion of Honor. Yet, for all his achievements, Henry Pierre understood that a family business required more than just success. It required succession. In 1941, his son, Alfred Henry Freddie Heineken, joined the company, fresh from studying marketing in New York and burning with ambition to transform his grandfather's brewery into something even greater. Freddie's arrival marked the beginning of another transformation, as significant as the one his father had engineered. With the scientific foundation laid by Henry Pierre and the marketing genius of young Freddie, Heineken stood poised to enter an era of unprecedented growth and influence. But with that growth would come risks that neither father nor son could have foreseen, risks that would eventually threaten not just the company, but the family itself. On a rain-slicked evening in 1983, the vulnerability of great wealth revealed itself on an Amsterdam street. The date was November 9th, and the time was approximately 7:15 in the evening when Freddie Heineken and his driver, Ab Dodera, stepped out of the brewery headquarters into the gathering darkness. 5 men, Cor van Hout, Willem Holleder, Jan Burlard, Frans Meyer, and Martin Erkamps, had spent 2 years planning this moment. They had initially targeted Heineken's Noordwijk home, but the security there proved too formidable, leading them to this alternative strategy. The kidnapping itself lasted mere minutes, a swift, violent action that saw both Heineken and Dodera forced into a waiting van, their lives forever altered. The perpetrators had prepared their hideout with chilling precision, a shed in Amsterdam's Western Harbour area, behind whose false wall lay 2 specially constructed cells. These cramped spaces, where Heineken and Dodera would spend the next 3 weeks, featured soundproofing materials and heavy chains mounted to the walls. The kidnappers' demand arrived soon after. 35 million Dutch guilders, approximately $18 million, a sum that would represent the largest ransom ever paid for an individual in Dutch history. Within the Heineken company, executives wrestled with an impossible decision, weighing police advice against the life of their chairman. The family chose to pay. What followed was an elaborate dance of coded newspaper advertisements and recorded messages, each step carefully choreographed by the kidnappers. On November 28th, After a failed first attempt, the ransom exchange finally succeeded through an intricate scheme involving pre-buried barrels in a wooded area. But the story did not end with the payment. 2 days later, on November 30th, an anonymous tip led police to a nondescript warehouse in Amsterdam's Western Harbour district. The SWAT team initially found nothing amiss until one officer discovered the false wall. Behind it, they found Freddie Heineken and Ab Dodera, alive but forever marked by their 21 days of captivity. The aftermath rippled through Dutch society like shockwaves from an earthquake. Freddie Heineken emerged from his ordeal a changed man, retreating further from public life and surrounding himself with unprecedented security measures. The kidnappers scattered like leaves in a storm. Willem Holleder and Cor van Hout fled to France, where they would successfully evade capture for more than 3 years. Frans Meyer disappeared into Paraguay, where he would build a new life until a determined Dutch crime reporter tracked him down. The incident transformed not just the Heineken family, but Dutch society itself, forcing a harsh reassessment of the vulnerability of its business elite. Yet even as the physical wounds healed and security measures intensified, another crisis was brewing, one that would challenge not just the family's safety, but the very foundations of their business ethics. The gleaming headquarters of Heineken in Amsterdam stood in stark contrast to the dusty roads of Burundi, where the company's African operations were about to cast a long shadow over its reputation. In this small, troubled nation, Heineken had become more than just a brewery. It had evolved into what critics called an essential pillar of the ruling dictatorship. The company's annual tax payments to the Burundian government represented a significant portion of the nation's revenue, creating a complex web of mutual dependency that would later draw intense scrutiny. Local investigators began documenting a pattern of behavior that extended far beyond Burundi's borders, reaching into the heart of several African nations where Heineken operated. In Nigeria, a major corruption case emerged, revealing layers of questionable practices that had been carefully hidden from public view. The company's tax strategies across the continent raised particular concern, with evidence suggesting elaborate schemes designed to minimize payments to some of Africa's poorest nations. Perhaps most troubling was the company's use of beer promoters, young women hired to boost sales in local bars and establishments. These women, known locally as beer girls, often faced dangerous working conditions and sexual harassment, their stories eventually reaching the ears of human rights organizations. But it was the company's actions during the 1994 Rwandan genocide that would prove most damaging to its reputation. While violence engulfed the nation, Heineken's local operations continued, with some witnesses later claiming their products were used to motivate and reward perpetrators of violence. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, another crisis unfolded as Heineken's subsidiary allegedly collaborated with rebel groups to terminate a significant portion of its workforce. The company's response to these mounting allegations followed a pattern: initial denial, followed by carefully worded statements about learning from past mistakes. Internal documents later revealed that executives in Amsterdam had been aware of many of these issues, but had chosen to prioritize market expansion over ethical concerns. The revelations sparked protests outside Heineken's headquarters and led to calls for boycotts from human rights organizations across Europe. In response, the company began implementing new oversight mechanisms and ethical guidelines for its African operations. Yet critics argued these changes came too late for the thousands of workers and communities affected by decades of questionable practices. The African controversies marked a turning point in how the public viewed the once untouchable Heineken brand. Shareholders began demanding greater transparency and accountability, forcing the company to confront its colonial legacy and modern-day responsibilities. Independent auditors were brought in to examine every aspect of Heineken's African operations, their findings leading to sweeping changes in company policy. By 2025, Heineken had invested millions in community development programs across Africa, though debate continued about whether these efforts truly addressed the root causes of past controversies. The company's experience in Africa served as a stark reminder that in the modern era, traditional measures of corporate success no longer sufficed. Yet even as Heineken worked to address these ethical challenges, the question remained: could a company truly balance profit and principle in regions where the line between business and politics often blurred beyond recognition? The answer would help determine not just Heineken's future in Africa, but the shape of its global legacy in the 21st century. As the 20th century has given way to the 21st, the Heineken family's grip on their empire has shown no signs of weakening. The torch passed not with uncertainty, but with calculated precision when Charlene de Carvalho Heineken inherited her father, Freddie's controlling stake in 2002. She assumed control of an enterprise that had grown far beyond Gerard Adrian Heineken's wildest dreams. No longer just a brewery, but a global corporation that would demand both diplomatic skill and iron resolve to manage. Together with her husband Michel de Carvalho, a former Olympic skier turned financier, Charlene steered the company through the treacherous waters of modern business with remarkable dexterity. Under their guidance, Heineken continued its aggressive expansion, acquiring Mexican giant FEMSA's brewery division in 2010, bringing iconic brands like Dos Equis and Sol under the Heineken umbrella. The company's reach extended further in 2015 with a stake in California's Lagunitas Brewing Company, acknowledging the growing influence of craft beer culture. Each acquisition seemed to follow a pattern established generations before: identify excellence, preserve what works, and carefully integrate it into the larger Heineken framework. The family's influence extended into Asia, where in 2018 they secured a 40% stake in China Resources Enterprises, positioning themselves in the world's largest beer market. In India, they increased their holding in United Breweries to 61.5% by 2021, securing their position in another crucial market. Through economic upheavals, changing consumer tastes and global crises, the Heineken family has maintained their characteristic blend of innovation and tradition. Alexander de Carvalho, representing the fifth generation, has begun taking his place in the family business, ensuring continuity of the dynasty. Yet this is not the same company that Gerard purchased in 1864. The modern Heineken Corporation is a complex entity, balancing shareholder demands with family control, environmental concerns with profit margins, and traditional brewing methods with innovative technologies. In boardrooms across Amsterdam, London, and New York, the family's representatives continue to shape the company's direction with the same determination that has characterized their ancestors. They face new challenges: shifting consumer preferences toward non-alcoholic beverages, growing environmental concerns, and increasing scrutiny of corporate practices. And the 21st century demands a different kind of leadership than the 19th required. Where Gerard needed the courage to buy a struggling brewery and Henry Pierre the vision to modernize it, today's Heinekens require the wisdom to navigate a world where business success is measured not just in profits, but in social responsibility and environmental stewardship. Thus, the family's ability to adapt while maintaining control has become their greatest strength. In the end, perhaps Gerard Adrian Heineken's greatest legacy is not the beer that bears his name, but the dynasty he founded. A family that transformed a local Dutch brewery into a global empire, one carefully considered decision at a time.
Johnny, why did you write your book? Could you just tell me? Why did you...
I don't write. It's just a picture book. I have fun doing it.
Why do you call it Men Without Ties?
Why I like freedom. I like indulgence, individuality. Things don't constrict you to wear.
And you're pleased to do it for the Ultimate AIDS Foundation?
Absolutely. All the proceeds of the book are going to AIDS benefit.
Johnny?
In the pantheon of fashion royalty, few names command the reverence and instant recognition of Versace. You see, the brand defines maximalist luxury itself: bold Baroque patterns, blinding golds, and that hypnotic Medusa emblem that transformed Italian craftsmanship into global desire. And for decades, Versace has dressed everyone from rock stars to actual royalty, creating cultural moments that transcend mere clothing to become zeitgeist-defining statements. Yet, behind this multi-billion-dollar empire stands a family whose meteoric rise, devastating fall, and phoenix-like resurrection rivals anything in Greek mythology. including the tale emblazoned on their emblem herself. In today's episode of Old Money Luxury, we'll take you through a muse's miracle, how, from the blood-stained steps of a Miami mansion, this indomitable family managed to resurrect not just a fashion house, but a global legend, proving that some legacies are simply too powerful for even tragedy to erase, as we describe. The Versace family: couture, crime, and cash.
What are you most excited about in life right now?
Well, the next Met Gala.
As of 2025, the Versace family sits atop fashion's Mount Olympus with a staggering combined fortune of $1.9 billion. This isn't just wealth. It's dynasty-building financial power that transforms passing whims into industry-defining movements. The distribution of this colossal sum tells a story more captivating than any runway show could hope to deliver. Donatella Versace, the platinum-haired creative force who has steered the brand through nearly 3 decades of fashion's choppy waters, commands a personal fortune of $400 million. Her elder brother Santo, the business mastermind who kept the company's ledgers in the black, while creative geniuses dreamed in color, boasts a net worth of approximately $600 million. Yet it's young Allegra Versace, Donatella's daughter and Gianni's niece, who holds the family's largest share, a jaw-dropping $900 million that landed in her lap due to a tragedy that shocked the world. The Versace financial empire stands shoulder to shoulder with fashion's most elite dynasties. Their wealth extends far beyond the catwalk, with the eponymous fashion house founded in 1978 serving as merely the cornerstone of their commercial kingdom. The Versace aesthetic, bold, provocative, and unapologetically luxurious, transformed from clothing into a lifestyle empire encompassing everything from porcelain to palatial homes. When Michael Kors, now Capri Holdings, acquired the fashion house in 2018 for a cool $2.12 billion, the family's liquid assets exploded while they cleverly maintained creative influence within the brand they built. Versace Home, launched in 1992, evolved into a comprehensive collection that brought the family's distinctive vision into the living spaces of the global elite. Their venture into luxury real estate produced 8 exclusive villas in Marbella, Spain, each commanding a price tag of approximately 10 million euros. Donatella's personal property portfolio reads like a global treasure map, from the breathtaking 50-room Villa Mondadori overlooking Lake Maggiore to the historic Villa La Fontanelle on Lake Como, valued at 52 million euros. Her automotive collection includes a custom-ordered Rolls-Royce Phantom with paint that took craftsmen 3 months to perfect, a rare Lamborghini Aventador SVJ Roadster, and a Bentley Continental GT in azure blue that matches the Miami skyline. The skies and seas haven't escaped the Versace touch either. Donatella's customized Gulfstream G650, valued at 65 million euros, features cabin bulkheads silk-screened with Versace prints, because heaven forbid she should fly in an aircraft without the family logo. The family's 150-foot custom yacht, El Medusa, worth 42 million euros, represents the pinnacle of their lifestyle, a floating palace with an infinity pool that seems to merge with the Mediterranean itself. This empire of extraordinary wealth stands as one of fashion's greatest success stories. The billions they've amassed have funded not just opulent lifestyles, but also cemented a legacy that continues to influence global fashion, design, and culture. But behind the awe-inspiring appearance, limitless luxury, lies a sobering truth that forever altered the trajectory of the Versace fortune. For all their palatial homes and custom vehicles, their billions exist in their current form partially because of a single, horrific moment that unfolded on the steps of a Miami mansion one fateful July morning in 1997. But in order to properly tell that tale, we'll have to start at the beginning.
Fashion was a family business for Versace because he was immersed into it from his childhood.
In the ancient coastal city of Reggio Calabria, at the very toe of Italy's boot, Gianni Versace drew his first breath on December 2, 1946. The Versace surname itself carries competing origin stories, perhaps from the Greek Bersakis, a nod to the region's Magna Graecia heritage, or possibly from a street in nearby San Procopio where ancestors once dwelled. This southern Italian birthplace, with its persistent whispers of Greek antiquity, would later infuse the designer's aesthetic with classical motifs that became his signature. His father, Antonio, was a humble coal merchant, a man of practical concerns and earthbound commerce who could never have imagined his son's future ascent into the stratosphere of international glamour. His mother, Francesca, however, possessed the golden thread that would weave destiny, a talented seamstress who transformed limited resources into an atelier that employed a dozen women and clothed the local elite. Young Gianni did not play with toys like other children. Instead, he played with fabric scraps, pins, and the symphony of clicking scissors that filled his mother's workshop. By the tender age of 10, he had designed his first dress, his small hands mimicking the measured movements he had observed countless times at his mother's side. School proved a battlefield where Gianni suffered humiliating defeats, his grades so abysmal that teachers threatened expulsion during one particularly grim parent-teacher conference. What these educators failed to recognize was that their supposedly failing student possessed a visual intelligence that transcended their narrow metrics of academic success. While mathematics eluded him, the mathematics of the human form, proportion, symmetry, contrast, spoke to him in a language as clear as his native Italian. One pivotal moment crystallized his innate commercial instinct. Tasked by his mother to purchase inventory for her boutique, he returned with pieces so scandalously revealing she was certain they would languish, unsold and unwanted. To her astonishment, these daring designs vanished from racks faster than conventional clothing, a market response that confirmed what Francesca Versace began to suspect. Her son possessed not just creativity, but visionary insight. By his early 20s, Gianni could feel Reggio Calabria constricting around him like an ill-fitted suit, the provincial city insufficient to contain his expanding ambitions. Milan beckoned, Italy's northern fashion capital where dreams were cut, sewn, and paraded down runways to international acclaim. There, he began as a freelance designer, his talent quickening the pulse of prestigious fashion houses like Jenny, who recognized in this southern Italian something raw and revelatory. By 25, his bold, innovative approach had become his calling card, earning him coveted assignments for labels like Callahan and Complice. Yet for all his success designing under others' banners, Gianni increasingly chafed at creative constraints that weren't of his own making. The late 1970s arrived with Gianni at a crossroads, his reputation established, but his true vision still unrealized. He had built a name, but yearned to build an empire. In this pivotal moment, he turned not to fashion industry insiders, but to blood. His elder brother Santo, with his head for business, and younger sister Donatella, whose fierce creative judgment mirrored his own. Together, this triumvirate of siblings launched Gianni's first ready-to-wear collection, a sartorial declaration of independence that Milan received with shocked admiration. Unlike anything that had come before, his designs spoke a new language of confidence, sensuality, and fearless self-expression. The industry christened him the Milanese master of fashion, but such a claim merely served as prologue to a story that would redefine luxury itself, as Gianni Versace transformed his surname into something that transcended mere identity. It became desire itself. The iconic Medusa head that adorns every Versace creation wasn't merely decorative. It was autobiographical, a symbol Gianni chose because the mythological figure made people fall in love with her, unable to look away. By the late 1980s, his works revealed a deep obsession with Greco-Roman aesthetics, reimagined through a lens of contemporary boldness that felt simultaneously ancient and revolutionary. While designers like Armani crafted understated elegance, Gianni blazed a trail of audacious maximalism, Baroque patterns, blinding colors, and cuts that celebrated rather than concealed the human form. Fashion critics coined the now legendary distinction: Armani dresses the wife, Versace dresses the mistress. A backhanded compliment that Gianni embraced with characteristic defiance. By the early 1990s, the House of Versace had transformed from ambitious upstart to global phenomenon, with 130 boutiques spanning continents and revenues exceeding $800 million. Michael Jackson commissioned custom stage costumes, Elton John filled entire rooms with Versace pieces, and Princess Diana abandoned royal conservatism for Gianni's form-fitting dresses that forever changed her public image. His runway shows transcended mere commerce to become cultural events, with front rows so exclusive that Hollywood A-listers found themselves relegated to second-row seats, a public demotion that destroyed social standing overnight.
Versace's relationship with Antonio D'Amico was the longest lasting of his life. D'Amico was involved in the fashion industry. He was a model originally, and then he became involved in the Versace house in various forms. But really the most important thing for Versace was that he had a partner, was that he had someone that was secure and somebody that he could indulge.
His masterstroke came when he elevated a cadre of models: Naomi Campbell, Cindy Crawford, Claudia Schiffer, and Christy Turlington. From anonymous mannequins to supermodels, a term he helped popularize and a concept that forever altered the fashion industry's power dynamics. These women commanded $25,000 for 30 seconds of runway walking, unprecedented fees that reflected Gianni's understanding that personality sold clothing more effectively than anonymity ever could. Amid the empire building and celebrity crafting, Gianni found something increasingly rare in his stratospheric social circle: authentic love with Antonio D'Amico, a model whose striking looks matched the designer's own Mediterranean features. Their relationship flourished despite the era's pervasive homophobia, with Gianni refusing to hide his sexuality even as it complicated business relationships in more conservative markets. The bond between the designer and his model-turned-partner faced its greatest challenge not from external prejudice, but internal family dynamics, particularly with sister Donatella, whose fierce protectiveness of her brother sometimes manifested as jealousy toward Antonio.
That goes into the gallons into his legendary mansion, a palace in Miami. It's a massive opulent estate, and it's been turned into one of the...
By 1991, exhausted from managing both global expansion and family tensions, Gianni sought sanctuary in Miami's South Beach, purchasing a Mediterranean revival mansion for $3 million, a relative bargain that he would transform into a $33 million palace. This Casa Casuarina became the physical embodiment of Versace excess. 50 rooms of mosaic-tiled opulence where the designer hosted Madonna, Princess Diana, and Elton John for weekends of sun-soaked indulgence. The Miami mansion's 10,000-square-foot extension required the demolition of the Art Deco Revere Hotel next door, a controversial move that earned both criticism from preservationists and reluctant admiration for the resulting architectural spectacle. Inside these gilded walls, Gianni entertained with legendary parties where Hollywood royalty mingled with fashion icons under the watchful gaze of his beloved Medusa emblems, embedded in every conceivable surface. By the mid-90s, his achievements seemed limitless. He had revolutionized fashion marketing, redefined sensuality in clothing, and built a business generating nearly $1 billion annually. His theatrical genius expanded beyond runways to actual theaters, with Gianni designing costumes for ballet and opera productions at La Scala and becoming the first fashion designer invited to show his creations at the Louvre. The Versace aesthetic had so thoroughly penetrated global consciousness that even those who couldn't afford his clothing recognized his distinctive visual language, a commercial triumph few designers achieve in their lifetime. On sweltering summer mornings, despite his extraordinary wealth, Gianni maintained the humble ritual of walking to a nearby cafe to collect his own newspapers, a vulnerable routine observed by many, including a troubled young man named Andrew Cunanan.
Andrew at Bishop's, I remember hearing his laugh, and we immediately hit it off. He was really kind of a card.
He was determined that his classmates who came from rich families wouldn't know how...
Andrew Cunanan was born with a silver tongue rather than a silver spoon, a masterful fabricator who could conjure wealth and status from thin air. Raised in California and educated at an exclusive private school, he learned early that the appearance of success mattered more than success itself. By 19, he had abandoned college and embraced life as an openly gay man, a decision his religious mother never accepted and which culminated in a violent confrontation where he slammed her against a wall, injuring her shoulder. His father's simultaneous flight to the Philippines to escape financial fraud charges completed the collapse of Cunanan's family structure, pushing him towards San Francisco's Castro district, where he sought both community and opportunity. There, he perfected a particular talent, cultivating relationships with wealthy older men who bankrolled his increasingly extravagant lifestyle. One particularly generous benefactor provided $2,000 monthly, a luxury vehicle, and lavish international vacations, temporarily transforming Andrew from pretender into the person he had always claimed to be. When these relationships dissolved and his artificial world crumbled, something inside Andrew Cunanan fractured permanently.
Jeffrey trails body up in a rug and pushes it unceremoniously behind a sofa, as if no one would find it.
Some spree killers who are killing in a state of frenzy aren't interested in.
A killing spree began in Minneapolis with ex-lover David Madsen and former friend Jeffrey Trail, the latter bludgeoned with a hammer in a rage so overwhelming that investigators later described the scene as overkill. Cunanan then executed Madsen with a bullet to the back of the head and fled to Chicago, where he tortured and murdered 72-year-old real estate developer Lee Miglin in his own home. As a nationwide manhunt intensified, he traveled to New Jersey and killed cemetery caretaker William Reese solely to steal his pickup truck, his fourth murder in less than 2 weeks. With 4 bodies behind him and his face plastered across every American newspaper, Cunanan disappeared into Miami's vibrant South Beach scene, somehow evading capture despite being on the FBI's 10 most wanted list. Meanwhile, on the morning of July 15, 1997, Gianni Versace followed his usual ritual, a short walk from his Ocean Drive mansion to purchase newspapers at a nearby cafe. Versace had recently received devastating health news, a diagnosis of inner ear cancer alongside his private battle with HIV. But on this brilliant summer morning, death would come from an entirely unexpected direction. As the designer climbed the steps to his palatial home, 2 gunshots shattered the morning calm. Versace collapsed, his blood pooling on the coral-colored steps of the mansion he had transformed into a monument to his aesthetic vision. The assailant, immediately identified by witnesses as Andrew Cunanan, melted into the bustling tourist district as sirens wailed toward Casa Casuarina. Antonio D'Amico, hearing the shots from inside, rushed out to find his partner of 15 years sprawled on the steps, a sight so traumatic he would later say, "I saw Gianni lying on the steps with blood around him." At that point, everything went dark. Emergency responders transported the gravely wounded designer to Jackson Memorial Hospital, but the damage was catastrophic. Versace was pronounced dead at 9:34 that morning. News of the murder detonated across global media with unprecedented force. Fashion's most flamboyant visionary cut down in broad daylight outside his own home. As the Versace family reeled from unimaginable grief, all eyes turned to a shell-shocked Donatella, who now faced the impossible task of preserving her brother's billion-dollar legacy while barely able to comprehend that he was gone.
Extraordinary talent of Gianni, and could you ever see bringing in somebody else to work with you?
Well, to be compared to Gianni was not only tough, it destroyed me because Gianni was the king, Gianni was Gianni.
Thrust into fashion's most unforgiving spotlight, with hands still trembling from grief, Donatella Versace inherited not just a billion-dollar empire, but the impossible expectation to become her murdered brother overnight. The industry's vultures circled immediately, whispering that the platinum-haired party girl who had always operated in Gianni's shadow would surely crash the family business into oblivion within months. Critics sharpened their knives for her first collection, and their initial reviews cut deep. Too derivative of Gianni, yet simultaneously not Versace enough. Behind closed doors, Donatella crumbled beneath the weight of expectations, spiraling into an 18-year cocaine addiction that nearly destroyed everything her family had built. The pressures of leadership while grieving pushed her toward chemical comfort, with only a dramatic intervention from close friend Elton John finally sending her to an Arizona rehabilitation facility in 2005. Her personal life unraveled in tandem. Her marriage to Paul Beck collapsed in 2000 amid rumors that Gianni had orchestrated their union solely to ensure heirs for the Versace dynasty. Her daughter Allegra, who at just 11 years old inherited 50% of the company through Gianni's controversial will, developed severe anorexia, adding maternal anguish to Donatella's already overwhelming burden. Yet somehow, from this crucible of seemingly insurmountable challenges, a fashion phoenix emerged. Donatella gradually infused Versace with her own provocative vision, maintaining the brand's signature sex appeal while subtly shifting its DNA from Gianni's classical influences toward a more contemporary boldness. Her masterstroke came through cultivating celebrity relationships, most notably with Jennifer Lopez, whose jungle print Versace dress at the 2000 Grammy Awards literally broke the internet before such terminology existed. The dress proved so searched for online that it directly inspired the creation of Google Images, a single fashion moment that permanently altered the digital landscape. While navigating the treacherous waters of high fashion, Donatella simultaneously steered the company through financial restructuring in the early 2000s, expanding into new markets and reviving the haute couture line through Atelier Versace. Her business acumen proved as sharp as her design instincts. By 2011, she had restored profitability to a brand many had written off after Gianni's murder. When luxury conglomerate Capri Holdings acquired Versace in 2018 for $2.12 billion, Donatella negotiated terms that ensured she retained creative control while securing the financial future of the family legacy. This past March, at 69 years old and after 27 years at the creative helm, Donatella announced her transition to Chief Brand Ambassador, passing the design torch while ensuring her influence remains embedded in the company's DNA. Her nearly three-decade odyssey transformed her from fashion's most famous grieving sister into an icon in her own right, a woman who refused to be defined by tragedy despite it forever altering the trajectory of her life. The House of Versace today stands as a symbol, not just Gianni's pioneering vision, but also of Donatella's extraordinary resilience, a business that generates nearly $1 billion annually while continuing to define luxury for new generations. Let us imagine for a moment that you and your family have decided to finally take that once-in-a-lifetime vacation to the Big Apple, New York City. Once you arrive, you ascend One World Trade Center's observation deck, stroll through Times Square's neon corridors, and admire Manhattan's legendary skyline. Yet, little would you know that one family controls massive portions of these very landmarks. The Durst organization owns 13 million square feet of prime Manhattan real estate, ranking their family in the top 50 of America's richest dynasties. But even these real estate mammoths of Manhattan harbor secrets that decades couldn't bury. Their eldest heir became a convicted murderer whose victims spanned 4 decades and multiple states. Therefore, on today's episode of Old Money Luxury, we reveal the shocking tale of Robert Durst, the billionaire who inherited everything except humanity, whose path from penthouse to prison left bodies in its wake. Robert Allen Durst represented one of the most shocking intersections of extreme wealth and violent crime in American history. Born into a real estate dynasty worth $8.1 billion according to Forbes, this heir became a convicted murderer whose decades-long crime spree finally ended with his death in prison in January 2022. The story encompasses not only multiple murders and disappearances spanning 4 decades, but also the profound impact on one of New York City's most prominent real estate families. The Durst organization's empire includes ownership stakes in iconic buildings like One World Trade Center. The HBO documentary series The Jinx ultimately captured Durst's apparent confession when he said he killed them all, leading to his arrest and conviction after years of evading justice. This case illustrates how immense privilege and wealth could not ultimately shield a serial killer from accountability. Simultaneously, it devastated a family business empire built over more than a century. The Durst organization stands as one of New York City's oldest and most successful family-run real estate companies, with roots tracing back to 1915. The dynasty began with Joseph Durst, a Jewish immigrant who arrived in the United States from Gorlice, Austria-Hungary, in 1902 with only $3 to his name. Working initially as a tailor in New York City, Joseph gradually built his wealth through careful business ventures. He eventually became a partner in a dress manufacturing company called Durst and Rubin in 1912. Joseph's real estate ambitions materialized in 1915 when he purchased his first building, the Century Building, at 1 West 34th Street, using profits from his business ventures. This modest beginning would eventually grow into a real estate empire that would define Manhattan's skyline. By 1926, Joseph had acquired the original Temple Emmanuel at Fifth Avenue and 43rd Street, which was then the largest synagogue building in the United States. The building was demolished in 1927 to make room for commercial development. The same year, Joseph formally established the Durst organization. Today, the Durst organization owns and operates more than 13 million square feet of Class A Manhattan office and retail space. The company also manages 3 million square feet of residential rental properties, comprising almost 3,400 rental residences. The company's current portfolio is valued at approximately $6.7 billion. Office properties comprise 71% of the total value, elevator-related assets 13%, and condominiums 10%. The portfolio spans 56 properties, with 75% located in Manhattan and 23% in Queens. Notable high-profile holdings include One World Trade Center with a 10% ownership stake, One Bryant Park, and 4 Times Square. Yet from this empire of concrete and steel emerged Robert Durst, whose path would lead not to boardrooms, but to murder. In terms of financial performance, the Durst organization generates an estimated annual revenue of $117,400,000. The company employs approximately 626 people across its vast portfolio of properties. Joseph Durst's journey from penniless immigrant to real estate magnate began with a decision that would reshape Manhattan's skyline for generations. In 1902, he stepped off a ship with $3 in his pocket, arriving from Gorlice, Galicia, in what was then Austria-Hungary. The young Jewish immigrant found work as a tailor in New York City's garment district, carefully saving every penny he could spare. His business acumen emerged early when he became a partner in Durst and Rubin, a dress manufacturing company, in 1912. The profits from this venture provided the capital for his first real estate purchase in 1915. The Century Building at 1 West 34th Street became the foundation stone of what would grow into a multi-billion-dollar empire. Joseph demonstrated remarkable timing and vision in his acquisitions throughout the 1920s. His purchase of Temple Emmanuel at 5th Avenue and 43rd Street in 1926 showed his willingness to make bold moves. This was the largest synagogue building in the United States at the time. Joseph demolished it just 1 year later to make way for commercial development, formally establishing the Durst organization that same year. The company's growth accelerated with strategic acquisitions, including their first residential building at 5th Avenue and 85th Street in 1929. Even during the Great Depression, Joseph continued expanding, acquiring the Park Hill Theater in Yonkers, New York in 1936. The 1944 acquisition of 205 East 42nd Street proved particularly prescient, as this property would remain a cornerstone of their portfolio well into the 21st century. When Joseph died in 1974, his son Seymour inherited control during the challenging economic period of the 1973 to 1975 recession. Seymour transformed the company's scope and ambitions, focusing extensively on building skyscrapers throughout Manhattan. His innovations extended beyond real estate development into public consciousness. Seymour invented the national debt clock, a digital display showing the current United States national debt in real time. This invention reflected the family's engagement with broader civic and political spheres beyond their property holdings. Following Seymour's retirement in 1992 and his death in 1995, control passed to his son Douglas. Working alongside his nephew Jody, Douglas transformed the family business into one of Manhattan's most prominent real estate empires. The company's transformation of Times Square from a seedy red light district into a major tourist attraction during the 1990s exemplified their impact on Manhattan's urban development. Recent major financial transactions include a $1 billion financing package secured in 2017 for several office assets. The Durst organization generates an estimated annual revenue of $117,400,000 and employs approximately 626 people. The company's approach to financing mirrors that of real estate investment trusts, allowing them to optimize their capital structure and pursue strategic acquisitions. But while Douglas built towers that touched the sky, his brother Robert was descending into darkness that began with a 7-year-old boy watching his mother step off a roof. Robert Allen Durst was born on April 12, 1943, in New York City, growing up in Scarsdale as the eldest son of real estate magnate Seymour Durst and his wife Bernice Hurst. His childhood shattered when he was 7 years old, and his mother died by suicide, jumping from the roof of the family's Scarsdale home. Robert later claimed to have witnessed this tragedy, asserting that moments before her death, his father walked him to a window from which he could see his mother standing on the roof. A 1953 psychiatrist's report on 10-year-old Robert mentioned personality decomposition and possibly even schizophrenia. Robert and his brother Douglas underwent counseling for sibling rivalry during their childhood, indicating ongoing family tensions and psychological challenges. Douglas later denied that Robert had actually witnessed their mother's suicide, creating additional questions about Robert's relationship with truth and reality from an early age. Despite growing up in extraordinary wealth and privilege, Robert's relationship with the family business remained sporadic and troubled. He studied economics at Lehigh University, graduating in 1965, before attending UCLA, where he formed friendships that would later prove significant. His relationship with Susan Berman, daughter of a mobster, began during these college years. After returning to New York City in 1973, Robert married Kathleen McCormick, a dental hygienist, and began working intermittently at the family business. Robert's first alleged crime occurred in 1982 with the disappearance of his wife, Kathy McCormick Durst. The couple had married in 1973 when Robert was 30 and Kathy was just 19. By 1980, their marriage had significantly deteriorated, with friends and family reporting that Durst had become controlling and abusive toward his wife. Kathy told confidants that Robert had forced her to have an abortion and that she was considering divorce, though she felt constrained by what she described as an unfair prenuptial agreement. On January 6, 1982, after one assault, Kathy sought medical treatment at a hospital for bruises. The final confrontation occurred on January 31, 1982, when Kathy attended a party at her friend Gilberte Najami's house in Connecticut. During the party, she received an angry phone call from Robert and left early. Before departing, Kathy made a chilling prediction to her friend. "If something happens to me, check it out. I'm afraid of what Bobby will do." This statement would prove to be the last account of Kathy's movements that came from someone other than Robert himself. Robert waited until February 5, 1982, to report Kathy missing. His account claimed that Kathy had returned to their South Salem cottage on the night of January 31st, and that after an argument, she decided to return to the city. Kathy was just months away from graduating from medical school when she disappeared. Her body was never found, and though several people reported seeing or talking to someone they believed was Kathy after she supposedly returned to Manhattan, these sightings were never conclusively verified. The case eventually went cold due to lack of physical evidence, but suspicions about Robert's involvement never completely disappeared. During the media attention surrounding Kathy's disappearance, Susan Berman served as Robert's unofficial spokesperson. unaware that this loyalty would sign her own death warrant 18 years later. Susan Berman's murder in December 2000 represented the pivotal crime that would eventually lead to Robert Durst's conviction and imprisonment. Berman, who had been Robert's close friend since their days at UCLA, was found dead in her Beverly Hills home, shot execution style in the back of the head. The timing of her murder was particularly significant. It occurred just as police in Westchester, New York, had reopened their investigation into Kathy Durst's 1982 disappearance. Investigators had planned to interview Berman about her knowledge of the case. Prosecutors would later argue that Berman possessed dangerous knowledge about Robert's involvement in his wife's disappearance. They alleged that Berman had provided a false alibi for Robert following Kathy's disappearance and had served as his unofficial spokesperson during the initial investigation. In the days leading up to Berman's murder, Robert was engaged in extensive preparations that suggested premeditation. He was scrambling around the country, stockpiling money and setting up false identity because authorities had reopened the investigation into his wife's disappearance. Prosecutors revealed that Robert had begun stockpiling cash, stopped using his cell phone, and married a woman he had previously dated in what he called a marriage of convenience. According to witness testimony during Robert's trial, he had told Nick Chavin, a mutual friend, it was her or me regarding Berman, adding, "I had no choice." Following Susan Berman's murder, Robert fled to Galveston, Texas, where he adopted an elaborate disguise, living as a mute elderly woman. In 2001, Robert's elderly neighbor Morris Black was found dismembered, with body parts discovered floating in Galveston Bay in black garbage bags. During his 2003 trial for Black's murder, Robert testified that Black had pulled a gun on him and was shot during their struggle for the weapon. Despite the horrific nature of Black's dismemberment, a Texas jury acquitted Robert of murder charges, accepting his self-defense claim. He pleaded guilty to tampering with evidence for dismembering Black's body and discarding the parts, and also pleaded guilty to jumping bail. After a 45-day manhunt, he was arrested for shoplifting a chicken sandwich from a grocery store in Pennsylvania, just miles from where he had attended university. When arrested, he was found with thousands of dollars in cash in his rental car, along with cannabis and Morris Black's driving license. The HBO documentary series, The Jinx, The Life and Deaths of Robert Durst, which aired in 2015, proved to be the catalyst that finally brought Robert to justice. The six-part series, created by filmmaker Andrew Jarecki, provided an unprecedented look into Robert's life and the three deaths that had shadowed him for years. In the final episode, filmmakers confronted Robert with evidence that appeared to link him to Susan Berman's murder. After this confrontation, Robert retreated to a bathroom while still wearing his microphone, apparently unaware that he was still being recorded. Speaking apparently to himself, Robert was recorded saying, "There it is, you're caught, and what the hell did I do? Killed them all, of course." This moment became one of the most shocking revelations in true crime documentary history, providing what prosecutors would later characterize as a direct admission of guilt. FBI agents arrested him at a New Orleans hotel on March 14, 2015, just hours before the documentary's finale was scheduled to air, but his greatest enemy would prove to be his own failing body. The murder trial formally began in March 2020, but was suspended after only 2 days of testimony due to the COVID-19 pandemic. This unprecedented interruption resulted in a 14-month delay before the trial could resume in May 2021. During this extended period, Robert's health continued to decline significantly as he suffered from bladder cancer and various other medical conditions. Throughout the trial proceedings, Robert appeared in court in a wheelchair, looking frail in jail garb with a catheter attached. The judge was forced to have a blanket placed over Robert to cover his jail clothes and catheter bag to maintain his dignity to some degree. Lead prosecutor John Lewin crafted a strategy that linked evidence from all 3 deaths associated with Robert, arguing they formed a connected pattern of violence. "Everything starts with Kathy Durst's disappearance and death," Lewin explained, "and after that he had to kill Susan Berman because he feared she was going to talk, and then he had to kill Morris Black because Morris Black knew who he was." Robert's testimony lasted more than 3 weeks and proved devastating to his case. Under cross-examination, Robert admitted that he had lied under oath in the past and would do so again to avoid trouble. When asked directly about Susan Berman's murder, Robert made the remarkable statement, "Did you kill Susan Berman is strictly a hypothetical. I did not kill Susan Berman, but if I had, I would lie about it." On September 17, 2021, after decades of evading justice, Robert Durst was finally convicted of first-degree murder in the death of Susan Berman. Following his conviction, Robert was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole on October 14, 2021. Just 2 weeks after his sentencing, Robert was indicted by a Westchester County grand jury for the second-degree murder of his wife, Kathy Durst. This indictment came nearly 4 decades after Kathy's disappearance and represented law enforcement's confidence that they finally had sufficient evidence. Just 2 days after his sentencing for Susan Berman's murder, Robert was hospitalized with COVID-19 and placed on a ventilator. On January 10, 2022, Robert Durst died at San Joaquin General Hospital while in custody of the California Department of Corrections. He reportedly suffered cardiac arrest at 6:44 a.m. Pacific Time and was not revived. Because he died while his appeal was still pending, his conviction was automatically vacated under California law. By the time of his legal troubles in 2015, Robert had already been largely estranged from the family business for years. In 2006, recognizing the potential damage, the family had bought out his stake in the Durst organization for $65 million. Despite the scandal, the Durst organization continued to thrive under Douglas Durst and his nephew Jody Durst's leadership. As of 2020, Forbes estimated the overall Durst family fortune at $8.1 billion, making them the 47th richest family in the United States. The company's continued success included securing a $250 million loan from Wells Fargo and JP Morgan Chase for 1155 Avenue of the Americas in May 2025. From $3 in an immigrant's pocket to $8 billion in real estate, the Durst dynasty endures, forever marked by the heir who chose murder over mortar. If you've recently made the wrong purchase of makeup the last time you were in a Target or Tesco's, your morning beauty routine likely connects you to one of history's most disturbing fortunes. Billions built on Nazi collaboration and Holocaust profits. You see, L'Oréal's Bettencourt dynasty represents everything glamorous about French luxury. Yet beneath the corporate elegance lies a foundation built on wartime collaboration with history's most evil regime. And their carefully curated image nearly survived intact until an elderly heiress's friendship with a charming photographer triggered France's most explosive political scandal. The relationship cost her over €1 billion in gifts while exposing a web of corruption that entangled presidents, cabinet ministers, and Switzerland's most secretive banks. But secret recordings captured not just evidence of systematic financial exploitation, but conversations revealing how Nazi collaboration money had been successfully laundered through decades of lipstick sales and beauty campaigns. And the same fortune that funded presidential campaigns and purchased political influence had originally grown through profits from supplying paint to German submarines and supporting fascist terrorism. In today's episode of Old Money Luxury, we share the sordid tale of how some family secrets are seen as being worth $44 billion, enough wealth to buy silence, manipulate justice, and rewrite history itself. Pascal Bonfoy had polished silver and served champagne for 20 years before he decided to become France's most famous eavesdropper. The Bettencourt butler's pocket-sized tape recorder captured 21 hours of conversations that would expose how Europe's richest woman, Liliane Bettencourt, had gifted approximately €1 billion to François-Marie Bagnier, a gay photographer young enough to be her son and charming enough to convince her he deserved it. The inventory of generosity defied belief. Paintings by Matisse, Mondrian, and Picasso changed hands like birthday cards, while cash payments exceeding €160 million flowed alongside life insurance policies and a private island in the Seychelles. At one delirious point, the L'Oréal heiress, worth $44 billion, had even designated Bagnier as her sole heir. Bagné defended his windfall with remarkable audacity. "Don't even think about it. These are gifts which I refused for a long time. They are gifts from a woman whose mind is completely lucid." Such protestations might have continued indefinitely had Bonnefoy not pressed record in 2010. The butler's motivations seemed noble at first. He testified that he could not accept the unacceptable after witnessing what he described as abuse. According to Bonnefoy, the photographer called his elderly benefactor a B-word and demonstrated his contempt by urinating on her plants, though whether this qualified as performance art or simple cruelty remained unclear. Yet the tapes contained revelations that transcended domestic dysfunction. Money laundering, tax evasion, and influence peddling at the highest levels of French politics spilled from the recordings like vintage wine from a shattered cellar. Conservative politicians allegedly visited the Neuilly-sur-Seine mansion to collect envelopes stuffed with cash. Former accountant Claire Thibault claimed Eric Woerth received €150,000 for Nicolas Sarkozy's 2007 presidential campaign, while Woerth served as party treasurer. More curious still, Bettencourt had received a €30 million tax rebate during Woerth's tenure as budget minister. The photographer's ascent began in 1987 when he arrived to shoot Liliane for Egoist magazine. François-Marie Bagné had previously charmed Salvador Dalí and Johnny Depp, but the Bettencourt assignment would prove his masterpiece, not of photography, but of wealth extraction. Their relationship endured for over 2 decades, a testament to either true friendship or world-class manipulation. Behind this sordid saga of geriatric infatuation and political rot lurked an even uglier truth. The fortune that funded Bagné's island paradise and Sarkozy's campaign had origins that would horrify even those accustomed to French scandals. For Liliane Bettencourt's billions grew from soil fertilized by fascism and watered with the blood of Holocaust victims. L'Oréal sells beauty, but its founder, Eugene Schueller, sold something far uglier, his soul to the Nazi cause. The son of Alsatian pastry shop owners who rose before dawn to help prepare croissants had transformed from ambitious chemist into Hitler's eager acolyte, a metamorphosis as dramatic as the hair transformations his products promised. Born in 1881, Schueller graduated first in his class from the Institute of Applied Chemistry in 1904, seeming destined for a respectable career as a university researcher. That changed in 1907 when a barbershop owner asked him to develop synthetic hair dye. Working in his kitchen laboratory, testing products on his own hair, Schueller created the first safe hair coloring using paraphenediamine, an innovation that would build an empire and fund fascism. By the 1930s, the man who had once manufactured hair dye at night while selling it to hairdressers by day had evolved into something monstrous. La Cagoule, the Hood, received Schueller's financial backing and used L'Oréal offices for their meetings as they plotted to overthrow France's Popular Front government. This wasn't casual sympathy, but active participation in terrorism. The Comité d'Action Révolutionnaire murdered 2 Italian socialist refugees in June 1937, firebombed 6 synagogues, smuggled weapons to Spanish fascists, and planned a coup for November 1937. Schueller's 1941 book, La Révolution de l'économie, revealed the depth of his Nazi envy. "I know full well that we don't have the chance that the Nazis did, coming to power in 1933. We don't have the gift that the Germans had. We don't have the faith of National Socialism. We don't have the dynamism of a Hitler pushing the world." He also argued that France must rip from men's hearts the childish concepts of liberty, equality, and even fraternity, because they lead to disaster. Such devotion paid spectacular dividends during the occupation. Between 1940 and 1944, L'Oréal sales nearly quadrupled, while Schueller's personal income increased tenfold from 1940 to 1943. The company supplied paint to the Nazi war machine for camouflaging battleships and U-boats, generating profits that would build the post-war cosmetics empire. This growth came through collaboration with SS intelligence officer Helmut Knochen, who oversaw Jewish deportations to concentration camps and executed resistance fighters. After the war, Knochen specifically identified Schuler as one of his voluntary collaborators. Liberation brought Schuler before the Court of Justice in 1944 on collaboration charges. His acquittal in 1946 relied on testimony claiming he had sheltered Jews and funded the resistance, convenient contradictions that allowed the pastry shop owner's son to escape the fate of less wealthy collaborators. Post-war L'Oréal became a refuge for former fascists. Jacques Corrèze, who had helped the Gestapo evict Jews from their homes, rose to run American operations until Nazi hunter Serge Klarsfeld exposed him in 1991. When Liliane inherited this empire in 1957, she received a fortune built on fascist ideology and Holocaust collaboration, wealth that had multiplied precisely because her father chose to paint Nazi U-boats instead of resisting evil. Poetry discussions at journalist Pierre Lazareff's home in 1969 allegedly marked the first encounter between François-Marie Bagné and the Bettencourts, though this origin story carries the whiff of mythology crafted for society pages. The relationship that would captivate France truly began when Egoist magazine, a title that proved prophetic, commissioned the 40-year-old photographer to shoot Liliane Bettencourt alongside Federico Fellini in 1987. Bagné arrived at the assignment carrying credentials that money couldn't buy. At 16, Salvador Dali had sent his car to bring young François-Marie to the Hotel Meurice for art discussions. At 19, he had gained patronage from heiress Marie-Laure de Noailles. His circle eventually included everyone from Pablo Picasso to Johnny Depp, whose daughter Lily Rose would call him Godfather. During their photo session, Bagné deployed calculated rudeness, ordering France's richest woman to change clothes, barking instructions, treating her like any other subject rather than a $40 billion princess. Tom Sancton, former Paris bureau chief for Time magazine, understood the strategy. She was used to being kowtowed to, and this was a breath of fresh air. The elderly heiress, despite controlling the world's largest cosmetics empire, lived in what observers described as depression and boredom, trapped in a constrained, confined, codified bourgeois life. Her relationship with daughter Françoise had grown arctic. The intellectual young woman preferred books and piano to her mother's glittering social world, creating a void that Bagné would expertly fill. The photographer offered escape, excitement, and most importantly, attention from someone who treated her as a woman rather than a walking bank account, a platonic love affair that would cost more than most nations' GDP. Gifts began modestly in 1996 with transfers of real estate company shares, testing the waters of generosity. By 2001, restraint had vanished like morning mist. Bettencourt formally donated the bare ownership of 12 masterpieces valued at 20 million euros. A Picasso, Nature la Guitare, a Matisse, Grand Nu, plus works by Mondrian, Man Ray, and de Chirico, paintings that would remain in her Neuilly mansion but belonged to Bagné upon her death. 2003 witnessed an explosion of generosity. 250 million euros in gifts, coinciding suspiciously with Bettencourt's hospital stay, after which she made Bagné beneficiary of a life insurance policy worth 253 million euros. The pattern continued relentlessly, 6 million in 2004, 56 million in 2005. Another 250 million in 2006, when she modified another life insurance contract worth 262 million euros, creating a paper trail of obsession. André Bettencourt's death in 2007 removed the last barrier between his wife and her photographer, leaving her without anyone to warn her or watch out for her, as butler Pascal Bonnefoy later testified. That same year, Françoise Bettencourt-Myers finally grasped the hemorrhaging of her inheritance. Estimates ranged from 990 million to over 1 billion euros, including those life insurance policies, the art collection, substantial cash transfers, and a private island in the Seychelles. When asked why she had given €1 billion to a society photographer, Liliane Bettencourt offered an answer of stunning simplicity, because he asked for it. On December 19, 2007, Françoise struck back, filing criminal charges that would transform a private obsession into public scandal. 20 years of loyal service meant nothing when Pascal Bonnefoy watched predators circle his elderly employer like wolves around a limping deer. The 52-year-old butler had joined the Bettencourt household in 1989, witnessing 2 decades of family dynamics before André Bettencourt's death in 2007 changed everything. Without her husband's protection, Liliane Bettencourt fell deeper under the influence of advisors Bonnefoy considered parasitic, particularly wealth manager Patrice de Maistre and the ever-present François-Marie Bagné. The butler compared his moral dilemma to witnessing a car accident and not stopping to help, though his lawyer later revealed a more visceral motivation. De Maistre and Bagné wanted him out, and self-preservation sharpened his conscience. Between May 2009 and May 2010, the threatened servant transformed into France's most unlikely whistleblower. His espionage method proved brilliantly primitive. When Bettencourt received guests in her Neuilly mansion's private office, she would request refreshments, as she had for 20 years. Bonnefoy would enter with his silver tray, place it carefully on the table, then position his cheap recorder on the bureau, covering it with a piece of black felt that rendered it invisible to eyes accustomed to luxury. Security companies had swept the house for sophisticated microphones, but nobody suspected the butler's Radio Shack special. 21 hours of conversation eventually filled 28 CD-ROMs, capturing Liliane Bettencourt with her inner circle. Wealth manager Patrice de Maistre, solicitor Jean-Michel Normand, and François-Marie Bagné in their unguarded moments. The recordings revealed financial crime that reached into the Élysée Palace itself, exposing a web of corruption that made previous French scandals look quaint. Conversations about 78 million euros hidden in Swiss accounts mingled with evidence of money laundering and influence peddling at the highest levels. In one devastating exchange, de Maistre reminded Bettencourt she had given Bagné an island in the Seychelles, to which she responded with genuine confusion, "Oh, I wanted to buy him an island." Another recording captured her exhaustion with her supposed best friend. "He's someone I like very much. He's very intelligent, but he's killing me. He's becoming too demanding. Give me this, give me that." The nuclear revelation concerned Nicolas Sarkozy's 2007 presidential campaign. Claire Thibault, Bettencourt's former accountant, testified that she withdrew 150,000 euros in cash on January 17, 2007, following de Maistre's explicit instructions to give to Eric Woerth. 2 days later, de Maistre met Woerth in a cafe near Sarkozy's campaign headquarters, a meeting that appeared in de Maistre's agenda but mysteriously vanished from Woerth's official schedule. Judge Jean-Michel Gentil later tracked 2 transfers of 400,000 euros each from Switzerland, suspecting they illegally financed Sarkozy's path to power. Bagné's diary contained an even more damning entry from April 26, 2007. Sarkozy asked for money again, noting Bettencourt's affirmative response. When investigative website Mediapart published the recordings in June 2010, France convulsed. The scandal drove Sarkozy's approval ratings to historical lows and placed him under formal investigation in March 2013 for allegedly abusing Bettencourt's mental weakness, a president potentially facing 3 years in prison. The butler had lit a fuse that would explode not just one family, but an entire system of elite corruption, though mysteriously, offices of journalists investigating the affair would soon suffer coordinated break-ins. Justice arrived wrapped in legal jargon and measured in euros, but no court could calculate the true cost of what had transpired in the Bettencourt mansion. In 2015, a Bordeaux court convicted François-Marie Bagné of abuse of weakness, with prosecutor Gérard Aldiger declaring the photographer had imposed his control over her like a spider spinning its web. And once he had her in his net, he never let her go. She became his thing. The initial verdict seemed severe. 3 years in prison with 6 months suspended, a €350,000 fine, and 158 million euros in damages. A fraction of what he had received, but still a fortune by any measure. 7 others joined Bagné in conviction, including wealth manager Patrice de Maistre and his successor Pascal Wilhelm, each receiving 30 months with 12 suspended. Yet the French justice system proved as malleable as Liliane Bettencourt's will. In August 2016, the Bordeaux Court of Appeal transformed Bagnet's punishment into vapor. 4 years suspended, a €375,000 fine, and crucially, the elimination of all damages. The 94-page decision acknowledged he had perfectly organized the flow of largesse, but dismissed notions of psychological control, suggesting their friendship had brought fantasy to Bettencourt's constrained existence. October 2011 had already delivered Françoise Bettencourt Myers her true victory when a French judge declared her 88-year-old mother mentally incompetent. Medical reports revealed mixed dementia and moderately severe Alzheimer's disease dating back to 2006, years during which Bagnet had extracted his billions. Control of the €15 billion inheritance passed to Françoise and her sons Jean-Victor and Nicolas, vindicating years of accusations about systematic exploitation. Liliane Bettencourt's death on September 21, 2017, at age 94, closed one chapter while opening another. The world's 14th richest person left behind $44,300,000,000 and a legacy as tangled as her final years. Her daughter's terse announcement included the word peacefully, a notable choice given the warfare that had consumed the family. Nicolas Sarkozy's reckoning came later through a different door. March 1, 2021, brought France's first conviction of a former president for corruption, not for Bettencourt campaign funds, but for wiretapped conversations about the case. Prosecutors discovered Paul Bismuth phones revealing attempts to bribe a magistrate with a Monaco job for information about the investigation. 1 year in prison, 2 suspended, the court found he had sealed a pact of corruption. Today, Françoise Bettencourt Myers commands $89,600,000,000, making her the world's second richest woman after briefly surpassing €100 billion in December 2023. L'Oréal generates €43 billion annually. Its brands, Lancôme, Maybelline, Garnier, adorning faces worldwide. The family controls 34% through Thieves Invest, ensuring dynastic continuity. But beneath the corporate success lies an unexamined truth. This vast fortune originated from Eugene Schueler's Nazi collaboration, his profits from supplying paint for German U-boats, his support for La Cagoule's synagogue bombings. Helmut Knoschen, who deported French Jews to death camps, called Schueler a voluntary collaborator. Every euro of Bettencourt wealth carries this stain, Nazi money successfully laundered through 70 years of lipstick and face cream, still flowing through the coffers of the world's largest beauty empire. Imagine that you're close friends with Steven Spielberg, having dinner at his New York penthouse, while he casually mentions how his foundation's investment returns have been absolutely incredible lately. Kevin Bacon's there too, and he is similarly raving about his retirement portfolio's consistent performance through every market crash and boom. The conversation turns to money, as it always does among the wealthy, and they tell you they've got the absolute best investor in the world they'd like to hook you up with. His name is simply Bernie, and it seems like every wealthy person in New York bows at his feet, treating him like some kind of financial wizard who's cracked the code that eludes every other money manager on Wall Street. What your famous friends don't know is that they're about to introduce you to the architect of one of the largest financial frauds in human history, a man whose charm and credibility would ultimately destroy thousands of lives and steal $65 billion from people who trusted him with their most precious asset, their financial security. Therefore, in today's episode of Old Money Luxury, we explore how Bernie Madoff stole $65 billion and destroyed New York. On the 17th floor of the Lipstick Building in Manhattan, Bernard Lawrence Madoff commanded an empire built on $65 billion of stolen dreams. His investment firm processed 15% of all trading orders flowing through the New York Stock Exchange, making him one of the most trusted names on Wall Street. The Polish Jewish immigrant's son had transformed $5,000 in lifeguard savings into a financial dynasty that stretched from the exclusive country clubs of Palm Beach to the philanthropic salons of the Upper East Side. Madoff presented himself with the polished appearance of Wall Street royalty, while his wife, Ruth, adorned herself with jewelry and luxury goods that reflected their elevated status. The family maintained luxurious residences and properties that reflected decades of accumulated wealth, furnished with museum-quality art and antiques. Their collection of homes included properties in exclusive locations, each meticulously appointed with the finest furnishings money could buy. His yacht represented the pinnacle of maritime luxury, serving as a floating palace for entertaining the financial elite who entrusted him with their fortunes. The Madoff name appeared on donor plaques at Lincoln Center, Yeshiva University, and dozens of charitable organizations across New York City, cementing his status as both financial titan and philanthropic patriarch. Bernard served as chairman of the Nasdaq Stock Exchange, a position that elevated him to the highest echelons of American capitalism and granted him unparalleled credibility among institutional investors. His technology innovations revolutionized electronic trading. With major exchanges adopting computer systems, his firm had pioneered years before competitors understood their potential. The investment advisory business, housed on a separate floor from his legitimate market-making operations, managed assets for 4,800 clients who believed they had discovered the secret to consistent wealth generation. These clients included celebrities like Steven Spielberg, whose Wunderkinder Foundation trusted Madoff with substantial portions of their endowment. Hollywood executives like Jeffrey Katzenberg invested $20 million in the fund, while actors Kevin Bacon and Keira Sedgwick placed their retirement savings under Madoff's stewardship. Elie Wiesel's Foundation for Humanity entrusted $15,200,000 to the man they considered a financial genius. Hadassah, the Women's Zionist Organization of America, invested $90 million through Madoff's carefully cultivated network of trust. Yeshiva University committed $140 million to his investment strategy, believing they had found a reliable source of funding for Jewish education. The split-strike conversion strategy he described to clients promised annual returns between 10 and 12%, regardless of market conditions, a mathematical impossibility that somehow seemed plausible when explained by Wall Street's most respected figure. His brother Peter served as chief compliance officer, while sons Mark and Andrew held senior positions in the trading division, creating the appearance of a family business built on decades of legitimate success. Yet, beneath the marble floors and mahogany paneling of the Lipstick Building, a different kind of family business was operating according to rules that would have made Charles Ponzi himself envious. The name told the story: Miodownik, honeycake, sweetness wrested from Polish earth by Bernie Madoff's great-grandfather Berek, who married Chaya Rivka in 1879 in the shtetl of Radoshice. These small Jewish towns dotted the Polish countryside, self-contained worlds where Yiddish echoed through narrow streets, where the rabbi's word carried more weight than any distant czar's decree. David Solomon sailed into Ellis Island in 1907, the surname simplified to Madoff, easier for American tongues, the honey forgotten. By the time his son Ralph married Sylvia Muntner and settled in Queens during the 1920s, they were simply Americans with accents, carrying memories of places that would soon be erased. The borough offered what Poland's shtetls never could, a future unbounded by pogroms and quotas. Ralph found work in the skilled trades, while Sylvia stretched every dollar with the efficiency born of genuine scarcity. Their son, Bernard Lawrence, entered the world on April 29, 1938, during a spring when Europe teetered on catastrophe. The Madoff family occupied a small apartment in Laurelton, where young Bernard learned that respectability required constant performance, and that appearances mattered more than most people admitted. The boy displayed an early fascination with numbers and an intuitive understanding of human psychology that would later serve him in ways his parents could never have imagined. Bernard attended Far Rockaway High School, where he met Ruth Alpin, a girl from a family that had achieved slightly higher social status than his own working-class roots. Their courtship unfolded against the backdrop of 1950s prosperity, when young Americans believed that hard work and clever thinking could overcome any obstacle. The couple married shortly after graduation, combining their modest savings and boundless ambitions. Bernard's early employment included lifeguarding at beaches where wealthy New Yorkers spent their summers, observing firsthand how the truly rich behaved and spoke about money. These summer jobs provided him with $5,000 in savings, a sum that represented months of careful budgeting. In 1960, the 22-year-old Bernard established Bernard L. Madoff Investment Securities, LLC, initially operating from a small office where he traded penny stocks for clients who trusted his confident demeanor more than his limited experience. His early business model focused on legitimate market-making activities, matching buyers and sellers of smaller stocks that larger firms considered beneath their attention. The young firm's success grew steadily throughout the 1960s as Bernard demonstrated genuine talent for understanding market inefficiencies. His brother, Peter, joined the business after completing his education, bringing compliance expertise and family loyalty to an operation that prided itself on ethical dealing. The Madoff brothers built their reputation through meticulous attention to customer service and technological innovation, investing profits in computer systems that gave them advantages over competitors still relying on paper-based trading. By the early 1970s, Bernard L. Madoff Investment Securities had become a respected name among institutional investors. The firm's growth paralleled Bernard's evolution from working-class immigrant son to Wall Street insider, a transformation that required abandoning certain principles his parents had taught him about honest work. Bernard Madoff understood that technology would determine who survived and who perished in the coming transformation of American finance. While competitors clung to paper certificates and telephone orders, he invested every available dollar in computer systems that could execute trades faster than human reflexes allowed. His firm's technological innovations caught the attention of NASDAQ officials, who recognized that electronic trading represented the future of securities markets. The computer trading software developed with his brother Peter became the foundation for NASDAQ's electronic systems, establishing the Madoff name as synonymous with innovation. By the 1990s, Bernard L. Madoff Investment Securities processed 10 to 15% of all New York Stock Exchange trading orders. The firm's success earned Bernard appointment as chairman of the NASDAQ Stock Exchange during the early 1990s, a position that elevated him to the pinnacle of Wall Street respectability. His legitimate market-making business generated substantial profits by matching buyers and sellers of stocks, providing essential liquidity services that institutional investors valued. The firm's reputation attracted pension funds, insurance companies, and investment managers who needed dependable partners. However, Bernard had quietly established a second business within his firm during the 1970s, an asset management operation that operated according to different rules than his public-facing brokerage unit. This secretive division began when Bernard started concealing trading losses rather than reporting them to clients, a practice that initially seemed like temporary creative accounting. The asset management arm marketed a sophisticated investment strategy called the split strike conversion approach, which supposedly involved owning 30 to 35 S&P 100 stocks, while simultaneously selling call options and buying put options. Bernard described this strategy to potential clients as a conservative method for generating consistent returns regardless of market conditions, promising annual profits between 8 and 18%. During more recent years, he refined his pitch to emphasize returns in the 10 to 12% range, figures that seemed reasonable to investors familiar with mutual fund performance. The strategy's apparent sophistication impressed wealthy individuals and institutional investors who appreciated Bernard's detailed explanations of options trading and risk management techniques. His client presentations included elaborate charts and graphs demonstrating how the split strike conversion method had performed during various market cycles, providing reassurance that their investments were managed scientifically. The expansion of this asset management business accelerated during the 1990s as Bernard leveraged his NASDAQ chairman credentials to attract clients who viewed him as Wall Street's most trustworthy innovator. His dual business model allowed him to maintain the appearance of legitimate operations through his market-making activities while secretly operating the asset management division according to entirely different principles. Wealthy New Yorkers began referring friends and family members to Bernard's exclusive investment advisory services, creating a network of satisfied clients who vouched for his consistent performance. The combination of technological innovation, regulatory respect, and satisfied clients positioned Bernard Madoff as the financial industry's most successful entrepreneur, a reputation that would prove invaluable when questions began arising about his investment methods. What Bernard failed to recognize was that his growing reputation would attract investigators whose mathematical precision matched his own technological innovation. Harry Markopoulos possessed the mathematical precision of a forensic accountant and the suspicious nature of a man who understood that consistent profits defied the laws of financial physics. Beginning in 1999, this independent investigator began submitting detailed reports to the Securities and Exchange Commission, arguing that Bernard Madoff's returns were mathematically impossible to achieve through legitimate trading. Markopoulos provided the SEC with comprehensive analysis demonstrating that the split-strike conversion strategy could never generate the consistent returns Madoff claimed. Yet his warnings vanished into bureaucratic indifference. The SEC received at least 6 substantive complaints between June 1992 and December 2008, each containing evidence that could have exposed the fraud decades before its eventual collapse. One particularly damning complaint submitted in 2005 carried the unambiguous title, "The World's Largest Hedge Fund is a Fraud." Yet, SEC investigators treated it as routine paperwork rather than urgent warning. Despite conducting 3 examinations and 2 investigations of Madoff's operations, the SEC never performed what their Inspector General later described as a thorough investigation. The agency assigned inexperienced staff who lacked understanding of options trading and Ponzi schemes, accepting Madoff's explanations without seeking independent verification. Meanwhile, Bernard expanded his client base through an intricate network of feeder funds that collected money from smaller investors and channeled it to his asset management operation. Fairfield Greenwich Group funneled $7.5 billion to Madoff, earning substantial fees. Kingate Management directed $3.5 billion to Bernard's fund, while Ascot Partners contributed $1.8 billion from wealthy clients seeking access to his exclusive services. J. Ezra Merkin earned management fees for steering investor capital to Madoff's operation, serving as a conduit between Bernard and institutional clients. These feeder fund arrangements allowed Bernard to maintain the appearance of selectivity while actually desperate for the constant flow of new money required to sustain his scheme. The Madoff family's involvement created additional legitimacy that impressed regulators and clients. Peter Madoff served as Chief Compliance Officer, responsible for monitoring all trading activities. Sons Mark and Andrew held senior positions in the firm's legitimate trading division. Shanna Madoff, Peter's daughter, worked as compliance officer from 1995 until 2008. Her marriage in 2007 to Eric Swanson, a former assistant director of the SEC's Office of Compliance Investigations and Examinations, created a personal connection between the Madoff family and financial regulators. The couple had originally met in 2003 when the SEC performed an examination of Madoff's firm, an investigation that completely missed the multi-billion-dollar fraud operating within the same building. This examination represented one instance when regulatory scrutiny could have exposed Bernard's scheme, yet investigators accepted surface-level explanations without probing deeper. The failure of both internal family oversight and external regulatory supervision created an environment where Bernard's fraud could metastasize from creative accounting into the largest financial crime in American history. The very success that protected Bernard from detection would soon transform into his greatest vulnerability when global markets began demanding something his empire could never deliver: actual cash. The autumn of 2008 brought financial apocalypse to Wall Street as Lehman Brothers collapsed and panic consumed markets worldwide. Wealthy investors who had previously praised Bernard Madoff's consistency now demanded immediate access to their supposedly safe investments. Withdrawal requests that had previously trickled into Bernard's offices suddenly transformed into a torrent that threatened to expose decades of deception. Client demands for $7 billion during November 2008 proved sufficient to trigger the collapse of his $65 billion empire. Bernard's Chase Manhattan bank account dwindled from $5 billion to just $234 million by late November. Each withdrawal forced Bernard to confront the impossibility of his situation, as he possessed no actual investments to liquidate. As December arrived, Bernard found himself trapped between mathematical certainty of exposure and psychological impossibility of confession. On December 10, 2008, he gathered his sons Mark and Andrew in his Manhattan apartment to deliver the most devastating words of their lives. Bernard's voice cracked as he told his sons that his investment advisory business was finished, that he had absolutely nothing left. He described his entire operation as basically a giant Ponzi scheme, watching their faces transform from confusion to horror as they grasped the magnitude of his deception. Bernard estimated he owed clients approximately $50 billion, money that existed only on fabricated statements he had been generating for decades. He told Mark and Andrew that he planned to surrender to authorities within a week after distributing his remaining $200 million to selected employees, family and friends. The sons, who had spent their careers building the legitimate trading arm of their father's firm, suddenly realized they had been unwitting shields for history's largest financial fraud. Mark and Andrew left their father's apartment in shock, ultimately deciding they could not allow him to orchestrate his own surrender on his terms. Within hours, they contacted federal authorities, a decision that would destroy their father's freedom and fracture their family forever. Federal agents arrived at Bernard Madoff's penthouse at 8:30 on December 11th, less than 24 hours after his sons contacted authorities. The man who had once commanded respect as NASDAQ chairman answered the door in his pajamas, telling agents there was no innocent explanation. He was handcuffed and charged with securities fraud that would ultimately encompass 11 federal felonies. On March 12, 2009, Bernard stood before Judge Denny Chin in a packed courtroom and pleaded guilty to every charge without a plea bargain. He delivered a statement admitting that he operated a Ponzi scheme, betraying the trust of his clients. Judge Chin sentenced him on June 29, 2009, imposing the maximum 150 years in prison. The judge called Bernard's crimes extraordinarily evil, noting that he had betrayed investors, charities, and friends without remorse. Federal prison in Butner, North Carolina, became Bernard's final address, where he would die on April 14, 2021, at age 82. Peter Madoff pleaded guilty in June 2012 and received 10 years in prison for his role as Chief Compliance Officer. Mark Madoff hanged himself on December 11, 2010, exactly 2 years after his father's arrest. Andrew Madoff battled lymphoma, succumbing to cancer on September 3, 2014. Trustee Irving Picard recovered $14.7 billion through litigation. The Department of Justice distributed $4.3 billion to 40,000 victims worldwide. Bernard Madoff's name became synonymous with financial fraud, fundamentally altering how Americans viewed Wall Street expertise. Perhaps the most lasting legacy lies in the recognition that trust, once shattered by such comprehensive betrayal, requires generations to rebuild.